Hello, everybody. I hope you are doing well. Here we are. It's Saturday with Adam Gingrich. You can see over here. We are now using my new home built PC. And I've got to say, for the first time, I want to thank DeFango. DeFango is here in the live chat. Listen, man, I know I've disappeared the last 24 hours, but I did a deep dive on this new PC. DeFango, for people who don't know, helped me immeasurably in the 20 plus years since the last time I built a PC. It's been that long. He's been kind of goading me to do it, and I did it. And he made a couple of really great recommendations on parts. I really could not have made it. Really, it wasn't. I'm not going to say it was like super easy, but it wasn't very hard. And one thing I noticed, Senor DeFango, is that for the first time ever when using OBS, Adam and I can talk over Zoom during the intro. And I can hear him and he can hear me. Is that worth, $2,300? I got to say it is. Because for the first time, I feel like I'm actually running a show, like a real show with a green room and everything. By the way, Zoom users, we found out the hard way that in the last 24 to 48 hours, Zoom now requires every single person to use a password and for the host to manually add you to the Zoom room. So all of the good old days, the pre-coronavirus days, where you could just give out a number and people would join and leave, those days are gone, man. They're gone.
By the way, it was not accompanied by an email how-to tutorial or anything else to you as the software holder. I mean, the one who pays the
Yeah, right.
actual
Listen,
the
I'm not
cost of
going to
the
get
thing. So
on.
we did it on the fly. We did it in 23 and a half minutes,
Yes.
which
Well, it was a
might
crash
seem like a long
course.
time to
I
people,
threw
but
myself into a crash course on the Zoom admin settings on the web portal side. I'm like, what? I'm looking at like
yeah.
30,000 different little sliders going, what the fuck? What the fuck? I
Yeah,
don't,
it's a big night because the PC's up and running. So we've got increased resolution. Hopefully, even the sound will improve a little bit for some people, and we're less likely to run into any non-bandwidth issues on the glitch side. And so I decided to go ahead and take a shout out
yeah.
for all you folks
So
out there,
people can
which is a big
see the
deal during
difference.
a shelter-in-place season.
Yeah, well,
So
that's all I've
here
got.
we are.
All I've got is watching my wife drywall. She's doing all the drywall. The place is a dusty mess. Either I'm showering, sleeping, or I'm up till 5 in the morning with DeFango.
You know what? That was a spectacularly long break that Bonnie took from drywalling. I think it was like about a
She's
year
professional.
since we've been.
When the Corona madness is over, she now has the skills required to fix your ceiling from the water damage. Between her and me, we could
Uh,
completely repair
Great,
it.
it's still here.
Everything could be
It still
completed
here.
to,
I'm gonna
to
have to
factory
invest in some
specs.
serious step
You
ladders,
know,
but
my
yeah,
OCD, I'm very pleased with her work. It's flawless. I tend to look at it during the daytime, at night, from different angles to see if I can see any imperfections, which are, if any are detected, are brought to her attention in a timely manner for her to
oh, I'm
yeah.
sure this I can assure the people is true.
Yes. So everyone seems to think that everything seems to be working now. So we want to thank DeFango. That should piss off the
You know,
morbidly obese Thomas Schoenberger, who now is still waiting for his last ass wipe somewhere in California.
I think I don't know this Schoenberger cat, but I've seen some footage of him like in a dark room uttering hateful things. Um, Including my own name, which not knowing anything about the person seemed a little bit weird. But he seems like, not to be insensitive, but he seems, and not to trigger any YouTube trap words, but he seems like a real COVID morbidity issue waiting to happen. I don't know that he's gonna make it through. So in case he doesn't, to hell with you, TS. I never knew you, never wanted to. So if you are headed to the great beyond, and chances are, like Trump has said recently about a former senator or a congressman, sometimes you don't have to look up.
That's excellent. You worked that
Sometimes you have
one
to
in
look
because I
down.
had asked you to remind me. In the last when we did Thursday, right? So 48 within the last 48-hour news cycle, I seem to remember Trump took another swipe at Sessions on Twitter. I was very pleased by that. By the way, guys, it's 100 days, 21 hours, 25 minutes, and 40 seconds. Beep. Until
Yeah,
that traitorous motherfucker is retired from American politics permanently. Yeah.
that's what we're here. That's what we're here to remind everybody on a weekly basis up there, right in between us. It's really kind of hard to miss.
Yeah, I'm looking at our at the
We're-
show. It's looking good. I've actually got our skin tones matched, which is not good for me, but it's good for you. Yes, because usually
yeah.
I look too orange, or not orange, but like too pink, and you look like W.C. Fields. You know.
Yeah. Well, my ring light is definitely too far
No, no, it's
away because
good.
I've got a
You should
9.
do it this way from all for you don't look you don't have
Yeah.
that Bill Mitchell washed out look anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely pushed far away from me, and you know what? You get that Irish glow when you combine getting outside every time the sun is shining for 5 minutes, and then you combine that later with a few beverages. So it tends to kind of glow right around here, and no amount of resolution juggling or Snapchat filters will change that. That's just the
But
Irish.
you know what? When, in Ireland, what they say, you can't get a suntan when your knees up in the pub at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, that's
So
true. True.
everyone. Oh, so yes, surprisingly, surprisingly, for the first time ever, we've actually received donations when we're not live. Hmm.
It might be a good thing or a bad thing where people are saying, okay, stay off the air and we will contribute to the efforts.
Maybe that's their way of
Or
saying we
it's
should do less shows. It's possible, right? So let me bring those up.
I don't
So
I think we are hitting a nice medium here because I think that Mr. Swaddle slash simultaneous sip is starting to hit his Justin Bieber point of saturation with people, and especially with all of his ridiculous commentary. So I think you got to find that balance and do an hour and a half, 2 hours with maybe 3, 4 shows a week, and plus I get the night off Sunday with the Colonel stepping up. And you know what? I'm kind of I don't want to say this in a way that sounds offensive to the Colonel, but with each day that's passing by, the news cycle is trending more towards you might want to listen to what the Colonel has to say. There's some big deals going on in the
yeah.
military. The way the military is handling this, stepping up. We've got chain of command issues. You've got as Trump said, you've got one of our biggest nuclear powered aircraft carriers out there with a whining, complaining captain shooting a letter of concern all over the internet, which of course empowers your enemy. And then you got him getting sheared off as he's basically thrown off his command. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think is right in his wheelhouse. And certainly nothing about this is about having an expert. We're not going to bring on uh, an epidemiologist or a virologist come on here and basically drone on about what you hear all day on the news every day. I mean, it's like a repetitive news cycle. So, but I'm definitely interested, and I hope that the Colonel himself knows that he
Well, you
is
remember
in the
he's
in.
been warning us for years that during the 8 years of Obama, they've embedded a lot of uh, Obama loyalists, as many as they can squeeze into the chain of command as were available at the time, and they're now activating them like cells for the
Well,
for
that
the
to me was just
resistance.
like unreal. Can you imagine I mean, that to me looked like if the French had carriers out there, it seems to me what a French captain would do in charge of an aircraft carrier. It's just, oh, no one's listening to me in the chain of command, so I'm just going to shoot this thing out in an email outside of chain of command. I mean, that's just, it blows my mind because you know that our enemies are always testing for any weak points, and they're getting a boatload of data from us every day. They're getting all types of capabilities, both how far we can reach militarily. I think that's why you saw General Milley up there alongside William Barr talking about what we're going to do on the the coastal drug runs that they do. And I think it was just another warning shot on top of Trump telling Iran, oh, by the way, that little plan of you attacking our soldiers in Iraq is a bad idea. Now, we also announced rather brazenly that we're pulling out 1,000 medical professionals from the military, the active military, and we're putting them for now in the greater New York area. And that is giving information out that you can't pay for or spy for, as far as the enemies are concerned. So yeah, I wish Americans would wake up and realize that the media really is the enemy. They will not be content until they know to the number how many N95 masks are available, how many gloves are available, and particularly how many ventilators are available, and that not realizing that they are exposing national security issues every step of the way. So I applaud the federal government for being as judicious as they are with this response, but honestly, it's ridiculous. Before we get too far afield, you and I had traded a message earlier, and I did miss this last time. It goes to the central theme of all of our shows, which is right there in the middle of the screen, the Keebler elf. A lot of stuff got lost. A lot of stuff got lost politically in the last week because of and rightfully so, because of what's going on. And one of which was the incredible letter from one of Trump's campaign attorneys, Mr. Glassner, which was written in fine form to the Jeff Sessions for Senate campaign. And it is a scathing, scathing letter. Cease and desist using all images of the president. Stop with this delusional effort to make it look like the president in any way supports your campaign, or that you in any way supported him when you were in
Big
Attorney
stuff,
General's
huh?
office. I mean, it is like poetry to
Yeah.
me. I actually told somebody that was with the other campaign that's going on in Alabama that I'm going to print that letter out.
Powerade.
What do you
I
got
got
there?
your Powerade.
Powerade, cool. I'm at right now, thanks to the last trip to the grocery store by the wife. The big bottles are running low, but the 8-packs are plentiful, and I do have 6 or 4.5 8-packs right now, so we're good. But anyway, I am going to refer to the Glassner letter as hate in a time of cholera, which is, of course, my take on a very classic novel. And that's what it is. It's dripping with hatred and contempt for the former attorney general. And it is the only thing that can bring a smile to your face when you're dealing with overwhelming bad news all the time. So I want everybody out there, if you haven't heard about it, I don't know, you can Google it, but you can put it through the Twitter search bar. Glassner, spelled glass, double SNER, is our attorney through the campaign that sends out the cease and desist. You know, the kind that Ann Vandersteel and her buddy got down there in Palm Beach for acting like they were related to the campaign.
Ah, yes.
So check it out. Do check it out. Tommy Tuberville has been very gracious about it, not to make a big dust up about it, because we've got some cases down in Alabama. To be honest with you, I mean, you wouldn't think Alabama would be a pop up hotspot, but it actually is a little bit per capita
Well, you got to figure
proportionally.
anywhere where there's a major international airport, there'll be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and some people that are just like, live free or die types. They don't only live in Vermont or wherever. They especially live and roam free in the South, and it's really hard to corral a Southern man who is used to living the way he wants to live. And really, honestly, I don't criticize any governor for how they're conducting their business. It's just a good time to remind our our viewers, our listeners out there, that there is no such thing as a national quarantine. Trump has not ordered any state, county, city to be closed, or what is essential and non-essential. All those determinations are made at the state level, and in some cases the county or city level. So you can stop tweeting at Donald Trump to open up the economy, because that's what happened. You're hitting a nerve when you hear him today at the press conference, when he keeps, going back to this. We have this, again, I like to use this word because it's like this, it's a nature of duality of the whole thing. Is you have Trump on one side saying this is going to be the roughest 2 weeks for our country, and then the next question he says, cure can't be worse than the disease. Essentially, we got to open up and get back to business. So it really kind of like dueling images for people, and they're breaking down partisan lines, and I don't think that's very helpful at all. And then we have all these people out there, their conspiracy theories, and I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want Glenn to even. I have to repeat what he said before. We're not going to continue to talk about Dr. Fauci. He is a career bureaucrat first, physician second, scientist second type. He's still living off of this, mid 80s battle with HIV, and he seems to be finding some last little giddy up into his twilight years. But he doesn't set the tone for the White House task force on coronavirus. Matter of fact, that's Dr. Birx. And he doesn't set the tone for anything Trump says or decides to do. And he certainly doesn't dictate what states decide to do or not. So it's kind of ridiculous to put this all on Fauci. All Fauci is doing is just mouthing off like a loud guy from the five boroughs, with a Napoleonic little complex. To attack the guy when all the data thus far from Europe and our initial stuff from the metro area here in the Northeast, he's not wrong. He's just pushing it to the hill. And as somebody in that field, I think we said this Thursday night, they're always going to err on the higher side so that they look like they stopped death when the numbers come in lower. That's just the way it is. They want some empirical badge of,
Yeah, I mean, here's a news flash. Spoiler alert, as the son of a famous scientist, at least he told me he was famous. He's not here to attack me, but I'll show some deference to his memory. Scientists can be politicians just like anyone else. It's so guys, the way I look at it, I'm going to be honest with you, I never liked Fauci. Going back 35 years, I thought he was kind of an asshole. That my father certainly didn't like him. My father met him many times. That said, guys, he's not attacking the administration. He's not attacking the president. He's not causing any real problems for the country, other than he's like in his 80s, and this is his last Sundance and the Sundance moment. We should mention it. We'll say it's that Clint Eastwood spaghetti western moment. Although I guess his spaghetti westerns, he always died, right? No one ever. It was John Wayne rode off into the sunset. Clint Eastwood got murdered usually. But whatever the ending, we could have a lot worse problems than Tony Fauci, right? I mean, at this point,
absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what people think Fauci is dictating here. Not even the guidelines are dictated by Fauci. He's just a contributor. The reason why he was initially selected to be on the one of the face on the podium, so to speak, for the press briefings is because of his stature, and that if he's not there, there'll be some complaining and bitching and moaning from the people, in the media. Certainly, give me a break. I really don't. What would be different right now if Tony Fauci wasn't doing what he's doing? I don't think it'd be any different, because Glenn already described this thing painstakingly on Thursday night, how this works in a bureaucratic system like the NIH. If he gets put to pasture, there'll be a complaint that'll ripple through the media, like we're muzzling him, and then somebody else just like him or her, whoever comes up to the microphone will take up the same
Don't
mantle.
think that the multiple conference room meetings at NIH that Fauci on paper was facilitating, that they had 30, 40, 50 uh, PhDs and MDs sitting around a table deciding how are they going to play this with the president and the administration. Everything that's
Mhm.
being said has been decided by a group. Fauci just is the guy that they send to stand next to the president, but he's representing an organization of people. And don't think if he disappears, even the probable multitude of people right beneath Fauci who can't wait for this old man to retire so they can finally, show people how it's really
Yeah.
done. Don't think that the group consensus is suddenly going to change, because it's not.
No,
Right.
it won't.
So,
I think that's the best way as somebody who's been in those types of um, conference rooms during so-called, emergencies and, working at the executive level in government, I can tell you there's always a guy like that or a gal like that that's considered the most authoritative source in the room. And if the collective answer of the group, mostly led by political appointees like me, is not to their liking, what they do is they just harumph. They cough. They make it known that they're not going to agree. And then, of course, at that point, you have to find a way to, I don't know, ameliorate, just do
well,
something
you try to
so
find a
that we can
position
get
where you
past
meet
it.
in the middle and then ask them not to embarrass you.
You have to.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a
Right.
jury, Glenn. It really is. When you get a task force, it's kind of like a jury where the head, the head of the jury, the foreperson doesn't agree with what the collective sense is going. They're going to harump rather loudly because they take their position seriously or whatever. That's exactly what Fauci is doing, and I think he is maybe adding a few thoughts at the end of the meetings where there's otherwise consensus. But I'm telling you, Donald Trump signed off on the 30 days after the 15 days. And I can tell you that because he did so, this notion that Donald Trump is going to interfere with his own 30-day extension is kind of ridiculous. I mean, I don't see anything on the horizon as a layman to tell me that Donald Trump is going to stop his own 30 days because we got to get the country going again. So we can just put that down. That, in addition to the factual empirical data that's right in front of our faces, that New York, what we said a week ago, what we said a week and a half ago is now coming home to roost. It's inevitable. It was just not something you could stop. We're hoping that it doesn't get it, out of control, but proportionally compared to what's going on in Italy, hopefully Italy's on the downswing now, and Spain. But you have to understand that that's the flight path of the virus. Literally the flight path, because that's where things went in international air travel and seating cases there. And you look at what's going on in New York right now, and you just hope you don't hit the ceiling. And I think a couple of weeks ago we talked about this, and we talked about the horror movies where you see the people trapped, where they rise the water up to the top, and they think they're going to drown, then they drop the water, and then they do it again and again and again, and people don't know what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen in New York. Is like they're going to hit close to where they might run out of resources, but they're not going to, because the federal government will continue to marshal resources into that area. And but like Trump tried to say delicately today, I'm not quite sure everybody picked up on this. I'm not sure if you watched today, Glenn, because it was on a little earlier than it usually is. But when he mentioned about ventilators and the importance of ventilators, he talked about the mortality association of when you reach that stage with ventilators. And it was a very important thing for Americans to hear. Ventilators are not considered life-saving vehicles in a pandemic. They are when you're, a young person that has pneumonia, or you're going through surgery, you're on a ventilator, that type of thing. But when you have reached, oxygen levels of less than 60%, and it goes down to 50%, and you're looking at death they put you on a ventilator, and then they give you everything they can possibly give you. In this case, it probably does include hydroxychloroquine, probably not a Z-Pack at this point because of the stress that would put on the myocardial lining of the heart. But it's just most likely that these people already are engaged in active sepsis. And, it's hard enough to beat back what we've seen, the chest x-rays of these people who have these opaque orbs that are in there and just kind of like look like tumors. But that it's doing devastation to the renal system, and they've got kidney failures associated. It invariably turns into, for some people with underlying health conditions, most people over 70, invariably turns into sepsis, and sepsis is what actually kills them if they don't live long enough to drown in the fluid of their lungs, which is awful. So let's get past this whole Cuomo fixation on ventilators. Ventilators is basically the humane version of elongating one's life with the 10% chance that they might recover without treatment, which we have yet to really discover. So I envy the optimism that some people have out there, but I think that is born out of ignorance. It's born out of being separated from it. It's something that easily could happen to you being where you're at now, but I think you're smarter than that now, being the son of a scientist, where you're starting to see, this is going to suck, at least here. I don't know if it's going to be that way in Philadelphia. I don't know if it's going to go into Columbus and, down into St. Louis or anything. But I think at this point, being somebody of critical analysis skill set, somebody who has worked with government, knowing that if you're waiting for the feds to save the day, you better have a 30-day waiting period on top of what it is that you really need. And so I struggle with this concept that many on quote unquote our side on Twitter are saying, 7 days, we're going to be over the worst of it. I don't see that. I don't hear that. Not even from Trump right now.
Yeah, but we've been hearing next week is going to be awful. It's going to really show you. So I'm still waiting. Let's get to it. Where will we be in a week? You were saying 2 weeks. Then it's 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Maybe it'll just go on forever. Maybe the thing will get over it, and then they'll start, it's going to come back. See, look. There are scientists who've been sitting around at the NIH for 15 years wondering, what if we tried to flatten the curve? It's an experiment. But there's no way that you could ever enact that experiment in real life to collect the data. Well, guess what? Now you can. There's a whole...
Well, no, we can't. Well, I mean, in theory,
we're doing it.
With the asymptomatic cases prevent us from ever having a real hard number on it.
Look, this is the closest these guys are going to get, probably in their lifetimes, if they're already in their 50s or 60s. This is it. And there's a lot of push on the scientific side to flatten the curve, to try these things. Because everything has been theory from now. We've been talking about, when was the last time America suffered a real pandemic? It's been a while. Right.
100 years, yeah, basically.
And so you're talking, 3, 4, 5 decades of a bunch of scientists who have great theories, who've published papers, who even get some accolades at conferences, but everything remains theoretical, right? Because if they have models they want to test, it's always in the third world. You can.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump in here because we can't say that mitigation is theoretical. I mean, the data is all over the world. I mean, if you choose to try to take this thing on head first in a herd immunity style, you're going to get wrecked.
Well,
you're just absolutely going to get wrecked.
Okay, we're going to get wrecked, but what is it? We don't know what being wrecked is versus flattening the model. We don't know. We've never tried it.
I think some other countries around the world have given a real go at trying to get around,
they have
mitigation,
but
and hasn't turned out.
At the end of the day, it's not our level of sophistication as a country. You're talking about third world countries mainly. right? So this should be fascinating. I think, looking to see what happens in the next couple of years. What are the lessons learned, right? I wouldn't be surprised in 5 or 10 years. That's generally as long as it takes when the politics sort of dries out of it, and you actually, how
Yeah,
right?
could be. Yeah, we might not be around for it. I mean, the dead will determine the election. That's what I don't think people understand. I mean, if this was the spring of 2021 and we had won re-election, I would be looking at this thing in a completely different way. No less compassionate, but I would be looking at this without the political liability.
Right.
But being in my profession, knowing what I could do, manipulating death statistics, it would be fairly devastating, particularly if I get to be running a candidate who wasn't forced to face that type of thing over 8 years when they were uh, in the White House.
Well, I think
So
that's the key point, that I'm looking at this now as a purely political thing. Because as a public health thing, I hear a lot of stuff which just is not right. It's just not true. But I guess, look, look, there is no way I'm going to ever do anything to harm our chances of getting the president reelected. I want to be what I saw the Democrats, how they have been during my lifetime, which is you rally around your guy no matter what. No matter what. And in 10 years or in 3 years, 2 years, whatever, if we get him reelected, I will be the first to call for, for the actual data to be released to the public, which I doubt they will. Right? A lot of this stuff is proprietary to the scientists who may decide to sit on it for a while. We'll see. How many years did it take before we figured out that Duesberg was actually onto something, even though his career was destroyed by Fauci's mentor and other people at the NIH? Gallo comes to mind. During the AIDS epidemic, so many lies were spoken during the AIDS epidemic. They were all political lies. It was all political. The medicine no longer mattered because they had a gay marriage thing to accomplish in the next 10 or 15 years.
yeah, well, certainly it took that long. At least it took more than that, way more than that.
But
It was a losing political
there's no
battle for
point
them.
at this juncture. Look, to me, there's a lot of there's comedy, right? I went to Walmart today with my wife, and they have now created these Jean-Paul Sartre-esque lines to wait to get into the Walmart. And there's signs 6 feet in between everybody, for the public state of Pennsylvania, public health, and no one is standing 6 feet. There's not enough room for people to stand 6 feet. And so really all they've done is they've taken a bunch of people and squeezed them in a very small space, which is the exact opposite of what this social distancing policy is. Now, listen, if I was completely apolitical, I'd be using my platforms to mock and laugh and rail against the abject stupidity of the 27-year-old who probably created this policy at behest of a 60-year-old politician somewhere in Harrisburg. But if I do that, I'm going to damage. See, I don't want to break anything. So as dumb as this stuff might be, what else are we going to do? Just let the doors. I mean, look, if it's social, I don't know what else to say. I seem to be saying that
No,
a lot.
I'd be curious. I'd be curious to what your opinion is here, because you know what's going on in New York. You know they were a little late to the game of social distancing and closing things down. I'd be curious to what you think it would look like right now. And I want to acknowledge that Bill Gometz is saying that we are looking at least anecdotal success with hydroxychloroquine, keeping the ICU numbers down in New York City. If that's true, then that in and of itself is a miracle, because imagine if it wasn't keeping the numbers down. But if you look at New York, and I know we still have a lot of people ignoring, but not a lot. When I say a lot, millions. If you had millions of people just not practicing mitigation, I mean, you have to acknowledge the infrastructure of the city would collapse wholly and fully. The whole thing would collapse, even with total mitigation 2 weeks late, and you've got 8,000 cops calling off every day. You've got EMT workers that have just refused to engage with anybody who might be sick because they're not getting any direction at all about where to send them. Can you imagine a loaded and basically unguarded New York City facing this
Well,
thing
see,
head
there
on?
it is.
I mean,
I don't know, maybe you've done this intentionally or unintentionally, but there we've now we've crossed into a managerial / political motive.
I don't think it's like a Rubicon.
No,
I
I'm
don't think
saying
so.
that,
I
look,
mean, I think it's
what I'm
data.
saying is we don't know. We don't know if all of these efforts are really going to flatten the curve. We will know that in a couple of months. We don't know it now. It's one of these things, it seems to make sense to do it, so we're going to do it. I don't argue that. But we don't know. It's like
But if we're in our homes, how the fuck would we get infected?
because there are other people in our homes that can infect us, and
If they don't go out, like we're talking about a lockdown issue here.
look,
If people stay at
let's say
home,
your wife has it, and now they force you
okay,
all to stay in your home. Chances are elevated that now you and your kids are going to have it. And then if I'm unlucky because of the fucking morons who are now making us queue up and we're this far apart in front of Walmart, your goddamn kids are going to give me the thing. See, but you see, this is another.
well, I would never take my kids.
Of course you
to,
wouldn't, but there are so
but
many
I
other
know what you're
assholes I
saying.
saw doing that today, just today. Look, I don't mean to upset you, but there is another.
You're not
Right.
upsetting me because I think there's already empirical evidence going on, because there's no way in fucking hell California just decides to overreact 2 weeks before New York, and they don't have the issues that New York does. Now, granted, they've got greater geographical space.
We do.
People can go out and walk their dogs and probably not get infected, and they don't have to ride subways.
Listen,
for the
Adam,
most
this
part. They don't have
generation,
the same
you
issues.
and the rest of us are finding out what society knew 100 years ago, right? You mentioned love in the time of cholera. These things were known 100 years ago. We're rediscovering them, which is, hey, when people said that that moving people to an urban lifestyle is the only way to go and it's the most fantastic life possible and you're a loser if you don't live in an urban environment, there are some downsides to it. And here's one of them. That, New York City, your chance to socially distance the way I can, the way, like I'm at the top of the heap in social distancing because I picked a place 6 years ago thinking about these kind of things. And I found a place that my entire county might have 300 people in it. It's mainly empty land and wandering animals who like to shit.
And to be clear, you're not talking about COVID cases. You're just saying
I'm
people.
talking just anything.
Yeah.
There was no COVID-19 6 years ago, right? But from somebody who knows a little bit about survivalism and people and how diseases spread, the history of these things, I wanted to find a place where there's the least amount population density. This is common sense. High population density.
Okay,
right?
but you're undermining your own argument here.
No, I'm not. Let's listen. So if you're in a place where there's low population density and you stay away from other people, it's going to be much harder to get COVID-19 or any other disease, right?
It's going to be much harder to get everything, including groceries and other
Right.
things. But yeah.
But if you stock up, then you can mitigate that as well. Here's the problem, as I see it. In a place like New York City, and New York City is unique, which is why I think we're seeing such higher numbers there than anywhere else. I know that the people in California think Los Angeles is a city. It's not. The only cities that resemble New York City that I've been to are
Los Angeles is a county.
But
Let's
this
put it
is
that way. Like
it's,
Cook
there's a
County
Los
is.
Angeles City as well. It's got like 12 big buildings.
Yeah, but Los Angeles is the largest county
Right.
population in the country, but it's spread out. You're
Spread
right.
out.
It's spread
New
out.
York City, the five boroughs are this tiny little tract of land. It's completely overbuilt, especially Manhattan, where you've got 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 stories, people packed on top of each other. So I'm thinking, based on, my lifetime of trying to understand these things, that your chance of flattening any curve in New York is, it's a nice idea. Listen, I hope it works. I just don't see how. I just don't see how. All it takes is
Okay, well now I get where you're coming
right.
from.
For the rest of the country.
Because if that's the case, this is simply what happened in northern Italy,
Yeah,
where they couldn't flat. They
you
tried,
can
but
try.
it took them 2
Right,
weeks, and now they've been waiting a week for it to come down
right.
south. Right? They just naturally assume it's going to come south, and guess what? It hasn't.
Why?
So we don't understand
But
everything
we
about this
will.
whole
See,
thing.
the thing is, we will,
Yeah, but
but it's going to
we
be
will.
like
But what I'm telling
way after the
people,
election, you know.
way out. Well, yeah, exactly. The problem. But what I'm telling people who say we're going into the next Great Depression and all this other bullshit is like, okay, can we forget about that argument? Can we forget that if we just ramped up the, look at some of the states that are not shutting people indoors. Let's look at Missouri. Let's look at Iowa. Let's look at Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota. Uh, a lot of states that just let people make their own mind up, and they're all Republican states. I don't think that there's any Democrat governors who haven't shut down their states. But I will say that my crazy liberal governor, yours too now, he's been very odd. He's been doing it county by county. He has not declared a statewide emergency yet. But the statewide emergency that he didn't declare is the one that he accidentally declared by shutting down the state liquor store system.
Fucking idiot.
That mother effer.
Also,
So,
he's shut down the vape and tobacco stores. Huh?
Did he?
Yeah. I noticed that
boy.
because my wife, unfortunately,
Yeah, I was going to say, how Bonnie holding up? I hope she had a good supply.
everything in this, everything here is stockpiled. Everything. The only thing we can't stockpile are some of the perishables. But, hey, I've lived off crappy reconstituted food before. It won't be the first time. But, yeah, there's another thing, is that how is it that all of these states that started us down this path were all run by Democrats? Right? There was no... Look, they're trying to blame Trump for this. What did Trump have anything to do with it? This is not... Trump had nothing to do with shutting down New York. Nothing. And if it was up to de Blasio, there would have been complete shut down everybody for the next 5 or 6 months. That's how he was talking before.
Yeah, but that's the frustrating part. He was the last one to get in the game, and then went the hardest.
But see, we're coming back to politics now, right? Because in a political sense, what do you do when you're caught with your pants down? You come in even stronger than everyone else who's been watching this for a week or two. You say, oh, yeah, even though it looks like I was saying we should go to Chinatown and go to Broadway just last week and hug people. Well, you know what? Now I'm more hardcore than all of you. It's like it's the stupidest, but it's a very political move. It has nothing to do with actually being a leader. Right? A real leader, if he was told, hey, we've got a new type of virus making its way around the world, you should have a press conference saying, hey, look, we got this new virus. We're watching it. We understand if people want to, you start using hand sanitizer, wearing gloves on the subway, whatever. That's also political, but I think that will, like these tweets that never go away, it'll age better than what he did,
I don't want to lose this channel that we spent so much time building up, but I feel I can't hold back anymore for this one analysis, and that is the fact that this is the one time where a disease, an epidemic / pandemic, I think is costing at least 6 figures in lives between us and Europe over political correctness. I think political correctness has now entered into the realm of mortality because we refused We refuse to address where it came from, how it started, the wet markets that just produced the last two epidemics behind this one. How often are we going to let this happen? And the fact that we refuse to even call it what it is now, people are dying because of this, and I think this is grotesque. I think it's grotesque that we're not allowed to refer to it as what it is, where it came from, and why. Why? Because bats, because people are
Yeah.
eating weird shit. And but it is really, I think it's waking up a
But
lot of
Adam, they're
Americans who
eating
otherwise don't
weird
give a
shit
shit.
because the Chinese government is unable to feed every citizen with proper food. You think the
That's right.
Chinese are genetically predisposed to eating all those nasty things? Bullshit. Listen,
Mm.
if our country was mismanaged, if Bill de Blasio represented everyone in Congress and everyone in the Senate and the executive branch, add 10 years in the future and we'd be eating fucking bats
Dogs would be
too.
eaten. Dogs would be eaten in the
We would be
streets.
eating Eye of Newt. It's like medieval. I tweeted this a week or two ago that these people are medieval. But why were people in the Middle Ages eating that shit? Because everything was mismanaged. That's why. In ancient Rome, what were you lucky? You were lucky to get some flatbread, a couple of olives, and maybe like some mouse intestine. Hey, that was considered a pretty damn good meal way back when, during the time of Caesar Augustus, right? For a commoner. And so, we can mock the Chinese all we want, all day long.
And I
And we
will.
will, of
And
course,
I
politically
will. Yeah.
speaking. But you think the average Chinese person wants to eat that garbage? They do not. It's the only thing they go to the market and they see, what's the cost of chicken? Oh my God, I can't afford that. What's the cost of
Dude,
beef? You know?
that's like, you don't even argue with that, because when they come over and acclimate into this country, they're not setting up Chinatown wet markets much with bats, and just 'cause they have some disgusting stuff
There's
there,
some
yeah, but
freakazoids, maybe, but
nothing like
most,
this.
listen, I have up close and personal over 50 years of watching first wave Chinese immigrants and how they live. And let me tell you, as soon as they get here to the land of milk and honey, the first thing they do is they eat steak every night
Mm.
for months until one of their friends say, you don't look so good. Maybe maybe you should eat a vegetable. That's the thing. Look, if they could be eating the way we do, people are amazed. They're like, "Oh, I want to go to China to have the real Chinese food." And then they go there and it's like, "Oh my God, it's terrible." Yeah, because everything, no one has the money unless you're going to go meeting President Xi. Donald Trump goes to meet President Xi, and wow, they probably have some pretty decent food at that spread. But the average Chinese person, you know, unless you're one of the
Yeah, I want to remind people who say that Trump is too easy on Xi. He's not with the government, but he's trying to keep that high level communication open with Putin and
he's
Xi and
still in
stuff. But
negotiations,
I got to
right?
say this: his his daughter-in-law, Lara, has been put in charge of puppy patrol. I guess I call it Paw Patrol duty, because we got some calls at the state capitol a little while ago, a year ago, about puppy mills and shit we already dealt with. She is now concentrated on stopping the consuming of eating dogs and cats, and it's centralized in China. So this is a political statement being made from someone on the Trump campaign, and it's becoming a worldwide campaign to further isolate China. So China's got all kinds of
Yeah.
problems here. I mean, for people out there arguing that China's going to rise up faster
No.
in this post coronavirus economy, I just laugh, because we just pumped out up to 6 trillion worth of liquidity, which is more than
Mm.
uh, per purchase price that they could ever imagine doing. I mean, what they do on their economic level is built on their submerged currency and all that other bullshit, and slave labor. What we have to offer our economy in this trying time is literally incomprehensibly more than what China can do for theirs. It's just not comparable. There's no threat to the US dollar. There's no threat that Europe is going to decide once they rebound to invest somewhere else. America is where it's at. And frankly, I find it pretty pathetic that a lot of our Twitter pundits are out there talking about a Great Depression is descending upon us. Listen, we barely got into lending our small business portion of the CARES Act out Friday. We ran into some snags because some small banks don't have that kind of cash to, to levy out at that time. Big banks do. So that's why you had Bank of America and
Mhm.
JP Morgan. They're like, we're getting 5 points off this loan
They love it.
guaranteed from the government. When's that going to happen
Yeah, they
again?
love it.
They're smart. They did it. And by the time we get all this shit straightened out over the weekend, Monday, people are going to be getting all their loans. They're going to be getting the PPPs. They're going to be getting all the other stuff that they need.
You
Keep their
sent
business
me. You
afloat.
sent me that form, and I was looking at it, going, "Oh my
Yeah, I mean,
god!"
we're eligible, for God's sakes. If we're eligible, you're eligible. If you have an LLC, if you have any type of registered business, whatever type of
We can
proprietary
tell them that the
nature is involved.
$1 million that we should have earned last year is a real
Yeah,
thing.
well, of course, you have to produce, unfortunately, a little bit of more information, but at this point, we are not applying for that. But hey, listen, they're looking at religious
Yes.
groups, church affiliated groups that thought they were excluded. No, you're eligible. Any nonprofit can. Well, of course, I don't think political nonprofits, but any other nonprofits are eligible for this stuff. There's so much money about ready to cascade into this system of this government that there's absolutely no way that you're looking at what these so-called pundits are calling a Great Depression. It's a ridiculous statement.
Great Depression. I mean, I guess this is what we get for not teaching real economics for 30 or 40 years in college. You get a bunch of people who are easily led into the fear porn arena anytime some little setback uh,
Yeah.
arrives.
I mean, look at the climatology of the Great Depression. Look at the impacts on agriculture. I mean, frankly, it was like God's reckoning on an early America, saying, "Can you handle it? Can you live through this?" And we did. And we ran into World War II, where it looked like our deficit spending was just, we're never going to come out on the other side of this. We're just spending too much. And not enough people are buying war bonds and all this other shit. Well, guess what? We came out more powerful, wealthier than we ever had before from that situation. So you don't worry about inflation. I mean, seriously, inflation is the last thing. Stagflation is an
Remember
issue that
stagflation? I
could.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. Stagflation, not a lot of people do, but stagflation is something you look at in this issue. Um, Inflation, we are not at that realm. The notion of inflation is with a depressed world economy is laughable. It's just absolutely laughable. Where else are you going to go um, to invest? And the world is not going to turn protectionist all at one time. It's just not going to happen. And China has put itself in this real neon
Hmm.
halo of attention where people are going to look, especially the competitors up there or around there in Southeast Asia that want to knock them off for some, market shares. People are going to go to them. They're going to go to them for all kinds of productions that they don't want to worry about again when times are tough. So, and Iran too. Iran really suffers through all
Good.
this. Good, yeah,
Well, they need to listen. This
and
is the thing. For 30 years, people have said I'm crazy about everything. But when this shit's
well, they are at
Yeah, but
least
when
half
this shit
right.
starts rolling around, now everyone's like, "Oh, you really made the right choice." Like it's some miraculous thing. Like I just woke up one day and said, "Hey, I gotta move into the middle of nowhere." And no, this was like an evolution of thought. And I understand that you can have the entire country telling you you're crazy, but I'm prepared to still do what I think is right. And here we are at the other end of the tunnel I'm trying to tell people, anyone who's DMing me, the reality of life is that we can live at variance from the natural law, but eventually nature will reassert itself and snap us back into reality. And guess what? If that means in the future, in 10 years, if you see some dude licking all of the soda cans in the grocery store, there now are laws on the books that we can deal with that, where in 1972 there weren't. And by the way, all of this has reminded me of the Tylenol scare. I don't know if anyone is old enough to remember. Remember the Tylenol scare in the 70s, where some crazy guy was poisoning Tylenol before they had
Oh yeah.
the sealed bottles and shit. So we've come up against these kind of things in the past. We snap back to some level of reality, going, "Hey, the first time I visited the Netherlands with my father, we arrived really late at night, and we were walking around Amsterdam at like 11 o'clock at night, and we noticed that some of the guys would leave their newspaper. The newspaper stands would leave a stack of newspapers out with a little cup where you could put the money for the newspaper. Now, listen, I'm a New York City kid, and I looked at my dad and I said, "Are you serious? People will actually take a paper and then put the money, and then on top of that, no one is going to steal that money?" And my dad looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it?" But guess what? That's no longer the case in the Netherlands or Denmark or Germany. There is nowhere left that you can leave a stack of newspapers and a little cup next to it and expect to see your newspapers or money the next day. We live and we learn, right? That's all I'm saying, is that right now there's a lot of people starting with that peace dividend, the fucking Clinton and the peace dividend at the end of the Cold War, like the Cold War really ended, but whatever. Everything's going to be great. Reagan was bullshit. All that conservative nonsense just kept us in fear. It's now the peace dividend times, unipolar world. And guess what? The laws of nature are reasserting themselves, and some of the things we think are going to have to be modified. If you don't like it, then you can do what I do. Go in the middle of nowhere and pretend the world doesn't exist. But God help you if you got to wait online at Walmart. Right? God help you then. You better hope you have your HVAC suit with
Well, I think
independent.
that's what's producing the frustration right now. It's the people that are at almost infinitesimally low risk that are being
Right,
inconvenienced. And you've got people that are at very high risk that are getting
right.
desperate. And you've got the media only covering one of those two groups.
Ain't that
So
the
you've got
truth?
the rest of the people that don't feel they're being heard. So they get out on social media and say, "This is bullshit. My business is suffering. I've had to lay people off. I want to go to work." That will change a little bit once they realize that we really are sending money to people, and you can go back to work and make your full salary and probably keep the extra 600 they'll probably keep sending
Yeah, I
you.
saw that form you
Uh,
sent
it-
me. 2 pages? My God, this is like.
that's just a very small part that could
Did
apply
you
to
realize,
us.
Adam,
There's
to
five
get
other
my handgun
programs.
permit in New York City and it used to be 17, it's now 21 pages.
Yeah.
But to get a $1 million loan from Uncle Sam, not quite 2 pages. I love it. That's America right there. That's America.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, some friends of mine that own businesses, they were just like torn up about laying people off, and you got to talk them through it, and just, just say, listen, you know, you lay them off, you furlough them, they're going to get full benefits plus, depending on where you live, more money on top of that, and then you're going to get paid an emergency loan to cover the losses of your business. And when you open back up, it's entirely forgivable as long as you hire back all those people when they're when it's time and you hire them back, they're off unemployment and back on your payroll. So it's enormous economic opportunity out there. I think people are a little bit leery of it because we've been led down this road a couple times before where we just never, rose to the occasion to get the money into the hand where it needs to be. But this, you got to understand, this is the Republican Senate led by Mitch McConnell. He doesn't want to see any money into an illegal immigrant
Right.
hand. He just doesn't want
I
to
don't
see
think
it.
most
And
Americans
it's
do
just,
either. It's not.
I don't think they do either, man. But I'm telling you, uh, this is a tax ID issue. If you have an employment, an IEN, that if you in space, between you and whatever it is you're doing. If you're an illegal worker here, a legal worker, you're going to get paid. If you're an illegal worker, I'm not saying you are not essential to picking strawberries, and if you're out west, pecans and whatever else we have out there, oranges down south, and apples up
Political
here.
opportunities there as well.
It's just somebody's got to pick them.
Someone's got to pick them. It used to be Americans during the time of Eric Hoffer. He wrote extensively about being a seasonal worker.
Yeah.
There was a famous documentary made called Harvest of Shame. Okay? And a CBS documentary, and it brought to light the horrors of the conditions of the seasonal worker like Eric Hoffer, how inhumane it was Americans are migratory working. When in fact, if you read Eric Hoffer's take on it, it was the best lifestyle, the best years of his life. He was truly free. But anyway, we criminalized through the press the idea of Americans doing those jobs, and then guess who ended up doing them? People from south of the border. And it happened within a 5-year period. Now,
I don't really think there was another opportunity. I don't think we have Americans that are.
Well, we might. We have all those people on welfare, but here's politically speaking, they're on welfare.
Are we gonna marshal them?
They're never listen. Those people, the only way they're ever going to work is if they wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm missing out on some type of life. I want to work. Otherwise, we have a nice. They're like methadone patients. They get to just cradle to grave. They get their monthly stipend. They turn the EBT money into weed and Cheetos, and that's it. And that's it. So speaking honestly, this is a great political opportunity. These kind of wake-up call moments.
If we did that, though, let's just say the migrant workers said, the hell with you, you're not paying us, we're leaving, and we had harvesters that could go to.
But that's not going to happen. I'm saying that this.
Do you know how much you would have to pay?
This is what I'm saying. Yeah, I know. But even then, that's not going to happen because I would see this as some kind of impetus to finally fix the broken immigration system instead of this all or nothing bullshit that we actually can start. If you're a migratory worker, yeah, you want to be here 3 months out of the year. Yeah, here's a 2-page form, not a 20-page handgun permit thing. Here's a 2-page form. And once we do your background check, which we know is a joke anyway, Mr. Mickey Mouse, once we do that, you'll get a card with your photo and you're not illegal anymore. And you can do all of this kind of slave labor, and I think the Republicans who run these companies will be happy. The only people who won't be happy are the Democrats because then there's really no long-term way to make them citizens.
Yeah, the only person who's still pushing anything like that is Lindsey, and Lindsey gets killed for saying this stuff. And I think it's because he can't dissociate himself from this graduation to amnesty. And I just don't understand this. We don't need amnesty. No. I mean, it's almost like if someone's going to offer you a birthday cake, do you need the icing and the candles too? Is that what it requires for you to really feel like you got a birthday cake? I mean, we're offering you a good position. As long as you pay your taxes, you can send money home. I really don't understand this path to citizenship crap because that's where you really run into a buzzsaw.
Yeah. But you have to admit, it's great if you're a Democrat trying to raise money off people through email, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Here's a question from Athene. Adam, we have people in the chat that say they couldn't get the money for their businesses. Can you explain to them what to do? And before you explain it, Adam, we can put up on MAGA Coalition anything regarding this so people can go there and see it. So,
well, I want everybody to go to SBA.gov.
SBA.gov.
SBA, and that's smallbusinessassociation.gov. Because there's 5 different pots of applicants that you work with here. And you got to find the one that works for you. Unfortunately, not everybody is in the SBA database. If you're in the SBA database, you're going to get your money faster. If you're going to your local credit union, that's in whatever
Podunk,
Bodunk, we'll call it. That's a polite way of saying it. They're going to be very hesitant. They still are pouring through. Small banks are still going, what the hell does this mean? I don't know. And they're looking back and going, we're going to miss mortgage payments from other people. Now you want to lend money
Yes.
out? What are you talking about? And so what happened on Friday was a lot of people went to their banks, and their banks were like, I don't even know what the hell this shit is. So we need more guidance from the government. Come back on Monday or Tuesday or whatever. That's the reason. Um, but you got to remember, if you're looking for a loan to cover the payroll issues that you have, the hair salon, bars, restaurants, or whatever, gyms, things like that, you can only use the one pot of money for 25% of it can be used for non-payroll. So there's certain pots of money where if your utilities or your rent or lease or own mortgage, whatever, is going to be too high, that's not going to be the money for you. That's not the pot of money for you. So, I mean, SBA is always the first place I would check. Recommendation on where to go. Ask them about whether your bank or credit union is part of their system. If not, then ask them if they can send information to your small bank. Or, going to a small bank in a time like this, Glenn, is just,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's just like, I get it. They
It's
have
like
your
trying to get
information
that
and they can, but listen,
Carbondale,
that bank
PA
is,
banks, you know.
exactly. I've been there. But
Carbondale.
anyway, you, you go there and you explain to them everything. You say, listen, I need this loan. And they say, we don't know what to do with this yet. They say,
Well,
okay, do me one favor then. Give me all my information so that I can freely work with another accredited bank or credit union under the SBA
mm-hmm.
list. They're going to do that as long as you don't take away your entire
Yeah.
business from them. But I think a lot of people are willing to lose customers on the smaller end of the scale. They don't trust the federal government. They never trusted the federal government. Federal government screwed people over in the great financial crisis in 08 and 09. So you've got a lot of small banks that are just going to say, you know what? The government's never going to
Yeah.
come through with the 5 points
It'll
on
be like
this
it's your
loan.
risk to
So
take,
I can't help
and
you.
we'd prefer not to be part of it because if it blows up, we don't want to be anywhere near the litigation.
That's what a lot. We had to force certain banks, if you
Oh yeah.
recall, to do this stuff. So if I were you, I would go, and you don't have to deal with Bank of America or JP or even Wells Fargo if you don't want to. Although at this point, with the changes that Wells Fargo has made over the last 2 years, they've really been under the microscope. Everybody's been looking at them, the regulators and such. I think Wells Fargo might be an option for a lot of people. And just get it's kind of like switching dentists or doctors. Just get your financial information over to them. It's a click of a button for them. I promise you the money is there. I promise you the money is there. We've already given out billions in one day. And if it runs out, we're going to shore it up immediately. So if you got a little bit backlog or a bank that didn't really was not up to snuff, find a bigger bank, find somebody who's working with the SBA. And if you want to know which one you're applying for is best for you, SBA.gov. Glenn printed
Yeah, I'm gonna put a
the
post up
link.
on MAGA Coalition to detail
Yeah,
this.
SBA,
And
Small
by the
Business
way, small
Administration.
business owners or anyone in business, I'm noticing comments here in the chat that they know somebody who said it's going to take them 2 weeks to get everything together that they need for the SBA. Guys, what the hell are you doing running a business, small or otherwise, and not having
Yeah.
a binder with actual hard copies of everything you would need if you ever had, let's say, I don't know, an IRS auditor or a governmental representative from your town or state
Yeah.
wanting to look at your books? If those aren't ready,
Well, like Trump says about this thing, a lot of people never saw ever a pandemic this infectious. We get it. We know that a lot of small business people are small for a reason. They like where they're at. They like the number of employees that they
sure,
have. They don't want to let them go. But what they're also confused about is, wait a minute, if if I furlough them, they're going to be 100%
right?
covered. That's already a different part of the bill. What about me? Well, you have two
Yeah,
choices. You can apply for an emergency loan, or you yourself can declare as a unemployed person and get paid through that route,
Sure.
but you're not going to be able to pay your
No.
utilities, rent, whatever the hell else
You'll
is going
cover
on. So
your
you've
own
got to work with
salary,
the
but
SBA.
most of these guys are getting a low salary anyway if they're small business guys.
Yeah, at this point in time, if you're the man in charge and you want to keep, or the woman in charge, you want to keep that gym or that hair salon or that restaurant, you are going to have to probably work your ass off for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, talking to different people from the federal, state, county, bank level. But is that too much to ask for pretty much 99% free money? I
Look,
don't think so.
all I can tell you is, look, I've been an employee. I've also run my own businesses, multiple businesses. I'm just telling you guys, if you don't have, forget coronavirus, a COVID-19, forget all that shit. Let's talk about, this was 10 years ago and someone is talking about these things. Listen, I just got to block the Democrat scumbag. 1 second, please. He's gone.
I think he's joking, by the way. Periscope
Yeah.
side, I think he was just joking. But
Well, you don't make those kind of jokes, do you? No, you don't. No, you don't. This is my living room, and there's certain jokes you don't make.
yeah.
Look, 10 years ago, if you asked me, hey, man, what should I do? What level of documentation should I maintain running my business? I would tell you the level where, God forbid, one of your employees falls down and is paralyzed. He gets a workplace injury while working for you at one of your locations and is paralyzed. Wouldn't it be great if you had a single binder with every fucking thing you would ever need to show? The numerous government officials who are going to be interviewing you, who are going to want to see the area where he fell down, are going to be taking pictures of that area, as well as collecting his medical records. And they're going to want to see, do you have the right kind of insurance mandated by the state, mandated by the city? Or is any of those payments in arrears? Do you have the right posters in the right areas of your company? Guys, this is part of what I'm talking about, the good time Charlie. If you're one of these people that you just do the bare minimum in life, then everything is great as long as everything is great. But as soon as some bad thing happens, which, by the way, that's part of creation, right? That we go through good times and bad times. In the good times, you prepare for the bad times. In the bad times, you hopefully are thanking God and your own ingenuity that you've socked away enough or prepared as much as you could to mitigate the bad times. And so if someone is telling you it's going to take me 2 weeks to get a copy of my EIN certificate, remember that little fucking thing with the old company we were running?
Say no more.
It took. Why wasn't it? People were laughing at me. Why is Glenn spending 6 weeks trying to get a physical copy of the original letter, the EIN letter, which, by the way, the original vice president, if he ever had it, lost it. Well, guess what? There's a million things you just can't do unless you can demonstrate. Like, I couldn't change my name on a bank account without being able to show that original document, at least at the bank we were doing business with at the time. So look.
Well, and another lesson that we learned out of that is sometimes it takes time. You got to work with them. I mean, talk about, that was just a regular time exercise, non-war time. This is wartime.
People are dying. This isn't like I'm having trouble changing my PayPal name.
This literally, if your bank is not working for you or with you at this
time
point,
for a new bank.
And I hate to say this because a lot of small banks are out there that won't be able to hold on when their customers leave them. But if you're working with them just because your mortgage is there from your house and you're trying to link it with your business for, like a 3% discount, you can get the hell out and get your money to save your business. You don't have to pull all your money out or do anything crazy, but you definitely have to work. And preferably, if you work with a bank or a credit union that is on that list with SBA, you're going to be qualified for that $25,000 emergency loan within hours. I guarantee you. That was supposed to be the case on Friday, and I think it'll be the case on Monday. So.
I want to read the donations now. Hold on a second. Hey, Ruth Canfield, rather than have me try to type this out, just go to magacoalition.com and click on contact, and send your information that you want to send me there. I don't want to give an email address over a clear channel like this because the guy I just blocked on Periscope probably will mail bomb me. Just
Yeah.
he's pissed. He wanted to shill for syphilitic Joe, and I won't allow that. So here we go, Adam. Get this. Here are donations that happened, by and large, when we were not online today. So that means there are people who are watching our Thursday show, Friday or Saturday, thought to themselves, and I'll do it as William Shatner would do it, my God, this is astonishing. And said, you know what, I'm going to throw these guys 10 or 20 bucks, which, by the way, is how eventually I hope to pay for this this insane computer that went way over budget. But whatever, look how great it looks. I want to thank the following people, only first names. Gene, thank you, Gene. Fantastic. Used our form online. I want to thank Carolyn. You're the best, Carolyn. As well as Stacy. Stacy, you're number one. And also Joanne. Joanne sent one early. I mean, real early, like early Friday morning. So I think for the first, this is weird to say, but since starting this thing with you, I feel like for the very first time, minus that crazy first couple of weeks of the FEC version of this, we actually are beginning to build an actual, it's beginning to function like a normal endeavor. Like, I think whatever we call that last 2 years of hell.
Yep, not to be outdone. You have to look at the chat.
Damn, White Pawn Media, $99. Ho, 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 ho. If I was still a partier, that would be going to a guy in Central Park sometime in an hour or two. But being that it's 2020, I'm old, and probably Central Park has been shut down because of COVID-19. I guess it's going to just sit in our bank account until we can figure out something correct to do with it, like pay for our internet things like Zoom and whatnot. But thank you.
Well, for what it's worth, I went and became the third subscriber to the White Pond Media. So in case that ever explodes into a big media venture,
Yes,
I'm going to be a ground floor investor.
I hope White Pawn Media is ready to diversify, because probably going to get a lot more followers now.
Might be White Pond Media might become a subsidiary of MAGA Coalition Entertainment.
It could be.
We'll see.
It could be. It sounds good. So that I've read all of those kind donations, which I will now file away into my donations folder. And I am trying to send emails to every single person who donates. And I have, actually. So everyone who's donated gets a personal email until such time, hopefully, where there's just way too many, like that's going to happen. But if it does, we call that the kind of problems you need and want to have, as opposed to the problems that I've had in the last 2 years, which I didn't want, and I definitely didn't need them. So,
yeah, I'm reading some of the comments here, and I have to say that Thursday night I said Mnuchin's going to be under a lot of pressure to produce a lot of this stuff, and a lot of people are asking great questions. And frankly, we're not the top source here, but we do know, and I do know from talking to people that are involved in this. Matter of fact, I have a couple of friends that already went through the loan process on Friday, and they were almost too skeptical to sign off because they just thought this doesn't sound right, But this is the government. We spend, non-discretion, $1 trillion, discretionary, non-discretionary 2 point something trillion, and non-discretionary throw another trillion on that. We're putting enough to fund us through an entire fiscal year. Is like hanging over your head. You might not realize it. You're probably struggling to pay the utility bills and the groceries right now, but over your head, the United States government has situated more money than we will spend in about a year and a half of fiscal activities over the next 8-10 weeks. So fear not, fret not. The government is here to put money in
Oh
your
yeah.
hand. It's not
They're
just
backing
the
up. They're
check.
backing up that Brinks truck to your local.
They're
Yeah.
absolutely backing it up. And it's, but free money is one thing, Glenn. But, the government's never going to be making it that easy. You still have to
Yeah.
do your due diligence to get it done. And if that's what it takes to contact Glenn or I through Twitter or email or whatever, um, uh, am I allowed to call that out? White Pond Media, am I allowed to call out? Send me another text if I'm allowed to identify who White Pond Media is. If not, I'm going to keep it
Yes.
quiet and I won't say anything. But you do have to work. You got to work with people. Okay. All right. It's quiet for now. But I will say this. If this time the oversight involved, the money's going out. The money's going on. The money is only good for a certain period of time. This is a sunset provision bill. So put your offer in. If you are looking to retain employees and they're furloughed right now, they're making 100% what they were making before, out of no extra out of your pocket as an employer to do that. And then when you bring them back on, you're going to be almost entirely, if not entirely, 100% forgiven for the loan that carried you over for your own personal losses in the business. It's unbelievable. This country knows what it's up against. It's the wealthiest country in the history of the world. It got hit when it was at its apex of wealth. It's not going to allow its working population to drown. It just won't. I mean, I'm not saying it's forever. It's a short-term pump in. And if you've got a lot of debt and you've made a lot of bad decisions in your life, then this is going to be a really tough time for you. But you have to call your creditors. You have to call your, if you have a car payment, you got to call the bank you have there. If you have a mortgage, you have to call every. This is not the time to dodge creditors.
No.
This is the time to engage them because they're
Yes.
being forced by
And
the
leverage the
government
government.
to work with you.
Leverage the government bailout
Leverage the
against your
government
creditors.
against your
Yes.
creditors. This is an unbelievable period in time. And it's just really these people that are the real bottom of the barrel. What do they call those? The collection agencies that buy your debt off credit cards for pennies on the dollar or whatever they call them. They're basically they're already in the shit bin when it comes to like getting any real traction in Congress to protect them. Most decisions go against them. They depend on people not responding to them. So if you have a credit problem, or maybe it's not even yours, because a lot of times these credit collection agencies, they pick up these old debts and it moves from address to name and they get mixed up, and they will file a small claims against you at a magistrate's office or something. And if you don't respond to it, they automatically get the judgment. So this is not the time to be even if you dodge calls for the last few years of your life. This is the time to pick it up authoritatively and say yes. And you answer the phone yourself and just say, yeah, my name is so-and-so, and I am a negatively impacted U.S. citizen by the
COVID-19.
COVID-19. And if you have a problem, call my congressman, call the Small Business Business Administration, call somebody but me, because I'm going to report you for harassing me. This is the time to really take the reins on your debt. The lowest interest rates possible are happening right now. The credit card companies that Joe Biden has propped up his whole career, that were getting away with 26, 27% APR because people fell behind 1 month. This is the time where they're all going to be exposed. So my advice to you, as somebody who did work on the Banking and Commerce Committee for a year and a half in the State House, drafted plenty of legislation, dealt with the Department of Banking, dealt with a bunch of agencies, federally and state level. I can tell you, this is the worst time for these people that are trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel and go after low income people with bad credit scores and try to freak them out. And I think there's going to be a lot of scams involved, Glenn. I think there's going to be a lot of people at the Social Security end where they call and try to get people above 80 scared and say, well, if you really want to qualify for this additional payment, you need to give us your banking information. So we've got scams going on that end. And I can assure you, if you're on Social Security, disability, young, or just you've achieved the age of living where you're getting it, that all is secured by the administration, the Social Security Administration. That'll be issued by check to you. Don't answer a call from anybody about that. No one will call you about that. And Social Security Administration, the IRS, they work through letters. They don't work through phone calls. They certainly don't work through emails. If you have any questions that you just think don't smell right, something doesn't feel right, and you don't want to embarrass yourself by calling a member of your family or anybody else, that's what Glenn and I are here for.
We are? Yes, that's
And
what
we
we're
may
here
not
for.
be able to answer it.
Yes, we are.
Well, not really, but if it's a situation that's really weird, I think we can hunt down somebody for you to talk to. And I think there's going to be a lot of really weird scams out there. I really do.
When this much money is being pumped in to the economy
man.
with a 2-page fucking initial application, I think the grifters, I think the Q people are gonna seem small time within a month or two. You know,
Yeah.
because they really were. They were small time. I see Jen Levolate. DeFango wants to know where to get his check.
Yeah. Well, DeFango is part of that 0.001% that we may not be getting any checks. So we might have to support DeFango through other means. But
the way to do it is go watch his live streams and kick the brother some bread. That's how you do it.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank DeFango earlier. I would like to facetiously thank him for my gym workout that he gave me, how to stay fit at home during 30 days locked in. So far, I have gained 22 pounds. So
it's your take. So
I
you're
think I'm
basically
doing it
saying you're following his diet to the T.
I'm following it exactly. Exactly.
The only thing you have to do is to play this new game, Star Citizen, which he's trying to get me into, with a full pizza, the 8-slice one, sitting right next to you. Then you can really follow the DeFango lifestyle.
I don't know what that is. Can I play it without having an Xbox or something?
No, I mean the computer you have cannot play Star Citizen. But the good news is you can pretend you're playing it and still eat the pizza. So.
Well, great, but I'll stick with Netflix or something right now. And by the way, I was very, very dubious about the rave reviews of this King Tiger or whatever, the Tiger King bullshit on Netflix. And I've got to say, I'm 4 episodes in, and it is well worth your time, especially
what
as
is
a
it
shut-in.
about? Okay,
I can't explain that. That would be.
Is it a reality show or is it a drama?
It's a combination.
Okay, so it's like one of these. It's like a Spinal Tap, something like that, right?
It's based in reality, but the real kicker is, one of the parties involved, the main antagonist, I guess you would call him, has been filming himself, kind of like we do this way, but all around his entire life is running a tiger compound. He's been doing it 24/7.
So all right.
So he's got like 4 or 5 years.
So it's like Dog the Bounty Hunter. If Dog the Bounty Hunter was a tiger raise his tigers instead of
much thinner and gay.
right. Oh,
Yes,
gay,
that would
nice.
be.
So
Yeah,
they really
yeah.
checked.
It's got every
They got
twist.
everything going for this thing.
Oh, they got all the check
Should be
boxes. That's
huge.
just one of the characters. There's all
Does he
kinds of
have
other
like
characters
the
in it.
boyfriend who's into the tiger raising, or is the boyfriend like
Yeah, he's
hating the
got
tigers?
technically two
Oh,
husbands. They were married in a joint ceremony
excellent.
in hot pink cowboy shirts and jeans. This must be
I gotta
watched.
say, I know that Ginger likes this. By the way, Ginger, I owe you a response. She's making some kind of ski masks for when we run over, when for the was it Dog Day afternoon style ski masks. I'm be getting back to you there, but I think I'm going to be socially distancing myself from this particular show. But who knows? Maybe I'll end up watching it. Boredom eventually will set in, right? When there's
Yeah, let me tease it out
okay.
there that you may be at least because I think you take some perverse joy in serious psychological impairments of other humans. You may enjoy this on multiple levels.
See, Athene finally is understanding the new MAGA coalition. Finally, instead of all of this corporate messaging, she's saying, save Adam from cabin fever, donate to his paypal.me/MAGA coalition so he can buy his White Claw. He'll thank you every Saturday and Tuesday night, plus specials.
Well, with the liquor stores are closed, so I pretty much have no other option. But my wife, being that she is a caring soul, brought
Your,
some White
your,
Claw home, and I did.
but your beer stores are still open, right? Beer distributorship?
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Yeah, you know how it is
Mm-hmm.
here, right? I mean, the liquor stores with
They
the actual
separate it. Yeah,
spirits,
it's separate. So
they said
beer is like
so.
quasi groceries almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I like to have Dixie juice when I'm on Saturday night every time, which is everybody's been following me for a lot of years. Is 8 ounces of vodka and 28 ounces of Crystal Light. Um, Generally go through about half of that on a show. Not a lot, but enough to keep things interesting. White Claw is nice. It's good, low calorie, low carb. Everything's fine about it, but it's 21 bucks for a 12 pack,
Damn.
and that's a little
I
pricey
wonder if
if
people
you want to make it
are.
a
I
daily
think
habit.
people are allowed to mail alcohol to each other in the same state, right?
Yeah, you can mail alcohol if you don't market to Pennsylvania, but you can't direct distribute it to
No, I'm saying
Pennsylvania like
let's
good
say
or
I
say.
had
Yeah,
a very rare bottle of whiskey and I wanted to expertly pack it and mail it to you as a birthday gift. We both live in Pennsylvania.
no, I wouldn't. Yeah, my wife would be like, "All right, shelter in place and whiskey, no way. That might be a step too far
Well,
for
let's
her."
say vodka
But
then.
yeah, vodka. We just opened up the online access to the liquor store because the governor was in a shitload of trouble. I explained this to you last week. He had shut them down, and people were going to New York, New Jersey, depending on where they
Right.
lived, the state, Maryland, to get their liquor, and that's not a good
Well, no, it's good
situation
for
during
us
a
because that
breakup.
might be the opening. Remember, Pennsylvania decided to put this Democrat asshole in because of that gas tax that the Republican governor did. It seems to me all it takes in Pennsylvania to
Yeah.
fuck your career is just piss people off on some normal trying to get by daily level. Like
Yeah, I don't think the gas tax was. I think he was just an asshole. I mean, I worked for the guy, and our gas tax never polled in the top 8% of what people were mad about. They just thought he was an
well, I'm just
asshole,
saying out here,
and
when I
especially,
talk to the guys out here, this very heavy Republican area, a lot
mm.
of them told me they didn't vote for him the last time around. They wanted to punish him because they felt he lied about some gas tax. And I'm looking at them going, are you high? Who cares about
Well,
the...
it wasn't a gas. Yeah, because we didn't call it a gas tax. He refused to call it a gas. We called it a franchise. Uh, we did it at the distributor level, so
That's right.
we tax them up here, wholesale franchise fee or something like that. I
Seems to
forget what it is,
me,
but
I thought New York State was the state that needed its alcohol. And as a non drinker now, I can tell during my drinking days, Pennsylvania is a state that knows how to drink. And it seems to me
Yeah,
you
we.
take
Uh,
away at least 3 or 4 days a week being able to go replenish your supply. There probably, hopefully, will be enough pissed off voters when the time comes. If the little thing like this gas tax set off so many of my Republican neighbors, um, I mean, look, I'm trying to say in a nice way, like half the people I know in Pennsylvania are
yeah,
drunk. So
the
you got to get the.
the reason why that wasn't the kill shot for him was because at that point we were producing so much from the Bakken
Yeah.
area and from Texas, not only
So what
our
do you think
shale
did
too.
it
So,
for him? What put him?
he was
He was
just
an
an asshole. I
asshole,
mean, he was
kind of
just
like that
obtuse.
Kentucky,
He
the
was.
Kentucky governor guy.
Um, you know what? He was an asshole. The guy that got
Yeah,
beat. Yeah, he was. But
this guy was
no, he
worse.
was just an attorney general coming in. He went in. Well, I told you before. He's more like a um, what the hell was his name? Jesus, the guy that got banging Elliot Spitzer. So
Oh yes.
Spitzer got into the mansion by convicting a bunch of people along the way, and that's exactly what Corbett did, and including a lot of people that I worked with and were mentors to me, where he was sending people to jail for ridiculous terms for almost nothing, and then child predators were coming out before these people. And reluctantly, I went to the administration from the House because my political rabbi at the time uh, found the right position for me. And I was properly insulated from the Capitol itself. I was in an executive agency, which I talked about a lot, DCNR, conservation recreation, which is great because I got to oversee a lot of private land deals. I got to see subsurface right deals, oversee that with oil and gas rights and things like that, coal, remediation deals with big companies, and I got to do a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise got to do. But then he fell in with one of these. Let me just say a black girl who decided to blackmail the governor against my boss over a rather innocuous email that he had sent his
Not
wife.
even real sex, huh?
And
Just some email.
yeah, it just for no reason my boss was shit canned, and from there I became
I know what you
like a
became.
kamikaze
You
warrior
became a
because I knew
persona
everything.
non grata
And
suddenly in all of the.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you're the hand of the king working for the replacement. So it lasted 6 months, but they basically asked me to go to work, close my office door uh, at 9, and leave at 5. And that they didn't want to fuck with me, but it's just it's a microcosm of everything they did wrong. I mean, I freed up so much general fund dollars for them out of that agency, but I'm not the first guy to get screwed for doing the right thing, and I'll never tell a living soul how I voted because I left the administration by the time he was up for election. But I thought he was that bad that I'll never tell anybody that I voted for him. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, as Trump would say. But he was that bad, and damn sure it wasn't the gas tax because the gas prices never went up that much. People didn't even notice unless they went down to Maryland and they were
You
like,
know,
"Wait,
it
wait,
could be
why is it 30
that
cents
all my
cheaper?"
neighbors are just using this gas tax as an excuse because they don't want to admit that they personally hated the guy. On like personal reasons, like he seems like an asshole. Fuck him. That's not something you would tend to tell someone unless you know them really, really well. Well, I would, but I don't care. Uh,
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I'm just saying that you can lose by being an asshole, and
Wait a second. Way
that's
back in
my fear.
Obamacare, there was a provision to auto connect your bank accounts to the IRS. Yeah, it's called e-file. I use it every year now.
That's how they're getting the money to
Yeah.
people for your
I've been
checks. If
filing.
you don't have that, you've kind of screwed yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're going to have to wait for them to cut you a check in 6 to 8 weeks, probably.
Yeah, that's going to take a lot longer.
Yeah.
They got to verify everything, and they got to find your. They might actually. Last I heard is they're going to put up a separate portal where you're going to have to put your bank account information in there. I mean,
You
if
can go online
I just,
and start, you can establish that connection. You don't need to be filing
yeah,
because the IRS, sometimes I've paid, I don't know what it is, but I think it's because I haven't been well the last couple of years, so I put things off. So I always file an extension. And so when the taxes are finally done in like August or September, there's always this like $30 variance that is never, that gets lost in the shuffle, and I end up having to pay it. And I can either pay it by writing a check and mailing it, or I can use this. I've attached my bank account to my IRS.gov online account, and I can pay that way too. So you can create that connection without, I believe,
yeah.
without.
And a lot of people think, Glenn, that, they run into a bad year and they owe taxes, that's going to be somehow commandeered by the IRS. And that's not how it works. I mean, clearly they can't go in and garnish your without a series of official processes. So there's no harm in doing that. I know there's a lot of older people that still prefer that check, that yellow check with the Statue of
Yeah, I don't
Liberty and
prefer that.
all the
I prefer
bullshit
the
on
direct
there.
deposit.
Uh, but this is
Yeah.
but this is a relatively, it has to be this past tax year, the year before. So they won't look beyond 2018. They're not going to go hunting back. So for a guy like me, I'm paying taxes over the last couple of years. I don't have a bank account issued with mine. So I don't think I'd fall under this thing anyway.
2018,
So
I have that. So 2019 is due. I don't know, when is it due? 90 days from now. They've changed that, have they? Or
they
yeah.
extended it. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, look, guys, if you're filing your taxes every year, and if you're running a small business or any kind, well, I would assume if you're running a medium or large size business, you don't need this to be said. But if you're running some small business, single proprietor type deal, and you have your basic paperwork in a binder, I don't think this is, unless there's some special thing because of your industry, like, someone here was mentioning soil samples needed to be, showing some kind of, but if within reason, I don't think this is, not only is this not an onerous process, but it's one of the greatest. I think this is like one of the greatest boons to the taxpayer I've seen in my entire adult life.
Oh, I think maybe even in your father's
I
or
can't speak
grandfather's
to
life.
that
I
because
mean,
that
this
was
is
that was like over 100 years ago. All I can say is in my life, this is like, I saw that you sent me that 2-page thing, and I'm like, man, they're giving it away. They're not even like, you don't, the amount of time it will take you to fill that shit out and get that supporting documentation ready for the next phase. It should take you 5 to 10 minutes, right? So celebrate, my
and you will
friends.
certify. You will certify,
Yes, you will.
and you will be subject.
Yeah, to horrible
If
penalties
you
should they
falsified it.
find out you're lying to them,
Yeah.
which it's the government.
So,
So really, what are they going to find out? I mean, come on.
but there are companies like ours that were started up right before all this stuff
Clearly,
happened,
COVID-19
and,
crushed
and, and
our
yeah.
yeah.
So we had a very modest payment schedule that we would even get to a level where we would give ourselves a salary. Obviously, we're not there, but this is not a small window. This goes till August, I believe. So if things get tough and there's not a lot of money there, and we wanted to stay afloat, we would have to guarantee a few things to the government as a you know an LLC. But the point is, there are a lot of people that are in a position where they start up an LLC or some type of S corp or something, and they started it up in January, like we did,
Check.
and all of a sudden this shit
Right.
happens, and you had all these ideas, and you made all these sacrifices to get where you're at, and then this hit. So everybody, breaking news: Ronald Reagan has died. I must. I will.
He's trying.
Thanks to
You
my
know what he's
Gestapo
trying to do?
mods, I will
He's
vote.
trying to nudge me into doing your Steve Lookna impression. But we're gonna save that kind of insanity.
Well, for $5, I'm going to give you one
One
Lookner,
Lookner.
and I'm going to read it. I'm
Read
going to
his
read it.
tweet. Okay, breaking news.
Breaking news: Ronald Reagan has died. I must retweet this. Follow me at Lookna. Thanks to my Gestapo mods, I will block you for not agreeing with me.
There it is. Enjoy. See?
That's
Send us $5.
$5
We
right
do
there.
perform like
Yeah.
seals, and we do it with a smile.
Yeah. Of course we will.
Yes.
Of course we will.
Yes, we will. Reagan's son, Michael. Oh, so he means Ronald Reagan the second or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Are we talking the ballet dancer, Mr. Twinkle Toes?
No. You know, the talk radio guy.
That's
who was
Ron
not
Reagan.
a real Trump guy. Yeah, Ron
as
is
opposed
a little,
to Ron Jr., Mr. Twinkle Toes.
Yeah, this is Michael. This is
Michael
the
Reagan.
radio host, the stepson. The stepson.
The stepson who wasn't molested, but still had. What was I reading like 10 years ago? It was like some sob story. It's like he's like, yo, my dad got divorced and married Nancy, and I'm like, dude, you should have spent 1 week with my father. You would not be belly aching about anything. You'd be like, oh shit, I get to live in this big mansion, and my father's a fucking president, and everything's going pretty good. And yeah, he got remarried. That can kind of suck, but it's not like he beat you or did weird psychological experiments on you. So, really,
Yeah,
come on, man. Get with the program.
It's kind of funny because I have a father who doesn't agree with the way I allocate my time in a professional sense over the last 3 years. No personal strife comes out over that, but I think you can appreciate the fact that a little, we carry a little bit of the characteristics of our fathers, but in other ways we just don't. And I think that the one thing that Glenn and I always had in common was the willingness to say F it when something not kind of working out now. And if it is causing problems, just kind of get rid of it, cut it off, even if it's painful. And there have been times where it's been painful, where we one of us or both of us had to decide that, like, this isn't worth it anymore, even though a lot of people were, in favor of this or that or the other thing. I think your relationship with your parents can be the same thing, dead or alive. To me, my father has been the object, just like a standing monument of indifference to what I do. My mother is a little bit different because she spent a lot of time in politics. So, but none of that has ever impaired my ability to do what I do. They've never asked me to just take greater responsibility and find, the employment that I had going into all this. They seem to recognize what I do is that this is a special moment in time.
Yes.
This is a Trump vortex. We're all trapped in it. It's like, it's weird. Remember there was a ride back at Hershey Park, and they probably had it at other parks. It was called the Rotor, and you started on a floor with the circular walls, and then it would go real, and the floor would drop.
Yeah, we had one in Coney
stuck.
Island. It was called
Yeah, one.
It was like a human centrifuge type thing, right?
Yes, exactly what it is. You feel like you're getting, you're getting tested for a disease.
The hellhole. It was called the hellhole.
It's not great. People used to throw up, and the throw up would stick back on them. It was hilarious.
That was the fun. That was the fun.
That's what I felt like this 4-year period has been to me. It's both fascinating, occasionally painful, certainly seemingly defying the professional physics, at least for me. But I'm just lucky enough to no way to be encumbered by pressures outside that would collapse my intent to do what I'm going to do, at least for now. Can't last forever. I can go out and ask my wife, who's probably still awake because her whole sleep schedule is screwed up by not having to be in the office every day for the next couple of weeks. But it can't last forever. But for right now, it feels like there's nothing more important. And I don't know if that's just my mind, or if we have a collective consciousness here where it was already, we already had to be hyper vigilant to try to get this guy reelected. And then the black swan appears. And then the black swan seems to separate the Trump base, like many things do. It's just, you can't help but think, timing wise, look at this stuff. We're going into Easter, and again, Trump stressed this in a press conference today. Not that he's releasing or relaxing any of us from the guidelines, but he was severely stressed. Not a very religious man. He was severely distressed that a lot of his supporters were going to be separated from their churches and from their traditions. And he's not wrong. There's a lot of tradition that goes along with Easter and Christmas in America. It is just a very important time for us. And we'll see how people respond. I think it might drive up the anxiety and the angst in a lot of people. But I hope that they can see that. I know today technically is Palm Sunday. And I hope that people choose to turn inward, kind of look, count your blessings, take care of your family, say your prayers at home, watch your mass on your computer. But if they can get through tomorrow, that's one thing. But Easter Sunday is another. It is for my family. It is for a lot of families. It's going to be a tough, stressful situation. The better, and I'm taking this back to what we were talking about, the better we can perform through the SBA programs, the banks that we're working with, the better that we can make people feel that own businesses and other people that think, how long am I have to wait for my 1,200 or my 2,400 or my 3,400? The better we can make people feel going into this, I think we can alleviate a lot of stress, because being away from your family on Easter, to Christians, Catholics in particular, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. In some ways, it's bigger than Christmas, because Christmas is like this universal celebration of whatever people want to celebrate. Easter is a very powerful concept. It's a very powerful message. It's a very powerful period for Christians and particularly Catholics. To be separated is not easy. And then for the traditions we do surrounding Easter, even average Americans who just aren't that religious, that do the Easter egg hunts with their kids or that type of family activity, try to do it at home with your kids. They will always remember it. I have a 6 and a 7-year-old, so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but I know that we'll do an Easter egg hunt no matter what the hell is going to happen. They'll remember it for the rest of their lives, because it'll be the strangest one. It'll be that one anomalous Easter where they weren't with their cousins, they weren't with their grandparents, that type of thing. So you got to try to make it special, even though it's a bad special. So Bill is saying, I wonder how much his church views are affected by Pence. I think a lot, because if you watch Pence today when he was talking about the healthcare workers, that was the most emotional moment. I think everybody who watched the press conference today said that moment where Pence came up and described how you have to say goodbye to your loved ones now is if you have a willing healthcare worker who will take an iPhone or an iPad and hold it up as your loved one is dying, and they'll do it at that moment. And Pence hit that tone. He has that ability to do it. And I don't want to call him an actor, but he's a hell of a politician. But his inflection, the tone, everything. I saw Deborah Birx just kind of like, this is not your average diagnostician or pediatrician type doctor. This is a woman who's been in the field for years, working with the military, working with sub-Saharan AIDS projects, working with everything. And I could see that Dr. Birx was like emotional about this whole thing, because what Pence's part of the press conference is like explaining that our families are not there while these people die. Thousands, I think probably over 8,000 right now as we speak in the country, and probably half of that or near half of that is in New York. No one's in the room. No one's in the room when they're passing away, and there's no volunteers allowed to do this type of thing. So doctors, probably not doctors, but nurses, um, technicians are holding up the iPad, FaceTimes, and stuff so that people can say goodbye to the people that are dying. In some cases, they're 40. In most cases, they're over 60. But Pence hit that, hammered it. So to answer Bill's question, I think that dovetailed the whole Easter week discussion with the fact that these people are literally putting their lives at risk. And Trump said today out loud about, he's described the doctors and nurses going into these hospitals as warriors before. Today was the first time he said, listen, some of these people are going to die. They're going to die because of what they're doing.
Right.
Because they're going across a battle line.
And it's about
they're
time
going across the threshold.
that I think as this thing marches on, the political side, we can't allow the Democrats to get away with this. We've as a party, we've allowed them to get away with so much. We won't fight. We won't call them out. But my God, these good time Charlies that run New York State into the ground, who spend like drunken sailors on nonsense, caught with their pants down and then lie, trying to blame the feds for their own malfeasance. If we can't get together at some point and say, hey, listen, Cuomo, shut up. You're the one who's been spending God knows how much money on some bridge that has your father's name on it. And you don't have some fucking ventilators, you asshole? Seriously? Really? Yeah. You're going to blame Trump for that too? And
I think
people ask why I fled. Why did you flee? Well, there you go.
Well, there it is. Because let me have you answer this by, say you had not the farm as an option, and you and Bonnie were in that apartment. Never mind the fact that you might throw each other out the window. But I mean, listen, the rate of incident, an infection or whatever, would have been much, much, much higher. And as healthy as you've gotten yourself over the last year, you still would have in the back of your mind been really afraid to get this.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, you know me, I don't buy all the hype. There's a lot of hype going on right now. I'm not particularly worried. In fact, I am convinced when this thing is over, I think Bonnie had it. See, here's the thing. I think my wife had this coronavirus, but guess what she's been on for the last 6 to 9 months? This whatever the fuck it is, chloroquine.
Because of the
MERS.
Rheumatoid associated with
because of Lyme's disease.
Well, that's what Lyme disease causes, rheumatoid arthritis.
It's not rheumatoid. It's MERS. It's a malarial. It's like a malaria derivative. You can ask Scott, SEH45, about it.
That's crazy.
So in order to kill the Lyme disease, they have to destroy these viruses live in the body for a long time unless you have a real regimen to kill them. And so she's been on this hydrochloroquine, I think is how you pronounce it. Mm-hmm. She just got a new shipment in today, which is very hard to get, but apparently
very, especially there.
Yeah, they shipped it in from New York City. She's a New York State resident. I am not anymore. Well, I still am. It doesn't matter. For the purposes of the ATF, and for New York City, you can live in two states at the same time, no problem. But the fact is, since this thing has started, and before that, the last year, I've been spending a lot of time not in New York City. And
Mm.
as this thing was ramping up, the day came where I finally called my wife and said, "Okay, the bullshit's over. I'm pulling you out." I love the fact that you think you're running all these businesses and going to all these meetings and blah blah blah. It's great, but it's not real. And now you've got to come out here because the city and the state are being run into the ground, and I'm very concerned about living under the thumb of an idiot. So to answer your
Yeah.
question, Adam, if I didn't have this place in Pennsylvania, I would literally have left and found a like a hunting cabin or a motel, long-term motel, trucker, interstate, the middle of nowhere, and that's where I'd be with my wife and cat, rather than live in Manhattan. Which now I've shared with you why I think it's a fool's game that they're playing there. They're not prepared. Everything is political that's coming out of the mouths of the leaders because they've spent the last 50, 60, 70 years not giving a shit about important things and literally wasting every moment of the day trying to figure out how to punish people for using the wrong gender pronoun at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. So don't get me
No
started.
doubt that's taken.
By the way, I fixed the issue now, finally, between your audio and your lips moving. It took a while. I mean, this is the first time we're doing it on the PC, but now everything, best I can tell, is ship shape, where I don't have to touch it again. We can just go on autopilot again. You just got to keep remembering to use that passcode every time you want to enter Zoom. Thank you, Zoom, for that email telling me we needed to do that. That was very
Yeah,
considerate
that
of
would have
you.
been a little bit helpful.
Thank God you're giving away your service for free. So that does. Oh, but wait. No, you're not. I'm paying you. I'm paying you every month, and you still can't tell me. So there it is.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to wrap up with this, people. My opinion, it's going to be a rough week. I think that's not an informed opinion based on any hospital data or anything like that. But I can tell you, just to, we're gonna swallow some tough numbers this week, and hopefully that's as they describe, you get the deaths are always going to be ahead of the decrease in the hospitalizations and ventilation. So uh, I'm anticipating a tough week, and we'll be here to share it with you tomorrow night. Uh, I hope,
Well, this is the
as
week we're going to
scheduled.
start going over the bell curve on this stuff, right? At least in New York City.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, New York City is forecasting that it's
Yeah.
near the
We're
apex, which
like
would,
I
would
think,
be
a couple
incredible.
of weeks away from knowing where we're at in New York City. And once we know where we're at in New York City, I'm hoping the markets, which are all New York City people anyway.
That's the thing. I
Right.
mean,
I mean, they're
all
not.
these people out
They're
there.
not, but they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, all these
Yeah.
people out there that are saying like, open up the economy, open it. Okay, well, we can't right now in New York, obviously. California is no way they're going to change tune right now because
Yeah.
they're all superstitious out there. They're just going to do what they're going to do, and we just have to understand that between Florida, Texas, who have their own cases, and we got some Dallas inflammation, if you will, and then they're going to get through it first. They're going to get through it first, which means the largest engines, which means 33 plus percent of our total GDP is going to have gone through this virus, and they'll be coming up first. And if there are flare-ups in the other part of the country, we'll deal with them, but it will not impact our economy in the same way. You've got to understand, even if you hate the politics of California, New York, even if you're a Democrat and you hate the politics of Texas and Florida, point is that's where our GDP comes from. No getting around it. We got to get those states through it first. And if we can get that done in 2 weeks and have a couple $1 trillion left over to put in the system, I just don't see things like Great Depressions happening. It doesn't make any sense. We're going to help who we have to help get back on their feet. We want to keep them alive. That's a big deal. And we also want to give back people their freedoms. But with their freedoms will come responsibility. And for a while in America, I think, Glenn, we're going to look at the entire summer. We're going to look like South Korea, Japan, parts of China, where people are wearing masks for virtually no reason at all. But so what? So what?
None of that bothers me. All I want to
Doesn't
see,
bother me at
all I
all.
want to see, is that by the time September rolls around, that the narrative is in place, and that the American public believe it, that Donald Trump saved us. And it looks to me, barring some really horrible turn of events, we may be shaping up to reaping the benefits of a real wartime president. That's what I
Yeah,
want.
actually,
Right.
I agree with you 110% because if you extrapolate the data from Italy and Spain and Iran or whatever, and we start falling way below, what other countries failed to do right at the right time, it could still be the UK, by the way, because they're still behind the curve. I think there's still a chance for us to come out. Look at the innovation. You're an innovation guy, maybe not biotech, but uh, innovation right now that is the mother of all innovation is this type of thing, for God's sakes, a pandemic. So we're rolling and streaming, and we're going to own this technology, and we're not going to let those freaking Chi-Coms steal it this time. We've got it. And it's not just a vaccine I'm talking about here. I'm talking about testing kits in general. I'm talking about the fact that, why we've never cured the common cold or the flu in America? It's because it's never been profitable enough to do it. And now it is. And they will stay on it like a hound dog until somebody gets that boo-ah and the federal government pays them all that money. It's like a grand, searching for the Willy Wonka golden ticket. A lot of people are doing a lot of things, and we're going to do a lot of stuff with the serology. We're going to do a lot of stuff with antibody. We're going to do a lot of stuff with, quick testing that we've already done through Abbott. This stuff is going to change the way we do business. And we're also going to cut off supply chains that don't make sense for us. So give us a couple of months. We've got $6 trillion in the system. Don't worry about it too much anyway. We're going to be back. And it may look a little different. The economy we build up in the fall may look a little different. But this Fauci shit, and the only thing I'll disagree with Fauci on is that he is so stuck in this old regimented 14 to 18 month vaccination shit. I can tell you right now from what we're hearing out of the University of Pittsburgh, we're going to be in phase 2 by July, which means phase 3 could be administered to healthcare workers before the fall's even over. So I think we're going to be pushing this thing through. And once you protect the healthcare workers, then we can deal with the fact that we don't know how much population already has antibodies. And I think we go. Football's going to start on time. President told NFL, you're going to start up on time. He also talked to the Major League Baseball and said, maybe June, looks like a good spot, start up. And he talked about it today. We're going to be within confines of each other. Maybe if we could stop sneezing and coughing on each other and shaking hands every 5 fucking minutes, then maybe we can actually improve our lives tenfold for anything from influenza to the real basic common cold. So I think we're going to come out of this, like I said, leaner, meaner than ever before. And a lot of you employees out there that are worried about working at home, I think telework has something the IT people in Glenn's field have been talking about for 20 years, should be more prevalent. You should not be taking flights across the country to have a meeting that you can have. You should not be going into work if you have to fight traffic for 2.5 hours. To get the best employees, to get the best data, to get the best performance out of your employees. Maybe that means hiring somebody from 3 hours away and they're only in the office one day a week and you can telework. Okay. That's the future. Maybe this is going to push us to the forefront of that development. That's important because it could also impact the way we do things collegiately, which is a giant ripoff on the system. We've been talking about this long before. Parents paying $200,000-$300,000 to send their kids to a college, to a physical point where they're jammed in with others in a dorm, and maybe they'll get meningitis if they're lucky, is unnecessary. Maybe not the entire form of education should take place outside of an internal classroom, but I guarantee we can get people out of that environment 2 years earlier, have them doing telework, and we can make education a lot cheaper. We'll need Bernie to come in and
You
say,
imagine
free
you
education for
imagine
everybody,
like the provosts at some of these big universities looking down the barrel now at this future where you can't rip off students,
Mhm.
really students' parents, $30,000-$40,000 a semester for a dorm room that is at the same level as like a state penitentiary. They're charging big time money. Your kids in
Huge.
about 10 years, you're going to be looking down this. Well, hopefully it'll be different by then. You're going to be looking at some of the prices for this stuff and going, wait a second. If my kid it goes to like a college within driving distance of my home, it might cost me
Mhm.
5 or 6 thousand a semester to send them. But if I'm sending them to a place where they stay in the dorms, now I'm going to be
Mhm.
spending $20,000 or $30,000 a semester.
And if it's out of state,
Oh
even
man, out of
higher,
state, just
right?
open your butt cheeks, baby, because it's coming. Right? They're gonna
Yeah.
they're gonna get you for the full 50K. If one of your
Oh,
daughters
easily.
was like, Dad, I'm an artist now, and I got into NYU or I got into Columbia Theater, or this is your nightmare, I know.
That will never happen.
Right. But let's say your daughter says, I just got into pre-med at Columbia University, very prestigious. And every one of your neighbors now is like, oh man, I heard your daughter's going to Columbia. She's going to be like making $1 million a year. And you'll be thinking, yeah, but Columbia wants like $60,000 a semester. What happens then,
Yeah,
huh?
it's the one thing about growing up around Hershey and being around the Med Center, which produced, by the way, Dr. Burks, um, is you get to feel now more than ever that it ain't worth it, and a lot of them will tell you now that they're in their 10th, 15th year after residency, they'll just say, I didn't see this coming, and I think that's never mind, never matters to this conversation, but overall, I think education has been drastically overpriced, almost subsidized to the point of it's ridiculous. And I'm not gonna push my kids one way or the other, but I will say this: that my parents told me flat out. I've said this before on Periscope. Uh, when I applied to a couple private schools because I wanted to play soccer after high school. Their answer was an emphatic no. I mean, not let's talk about it.
Yeah.
It was like you have a 2.8 GPA in high school, so we're gonna figure out that when you get to college, it's probably gonna be more like 2.2. And if you're going to continue to work at that level or not work at that level, we're not going to expend that money. And I thought because my sister went to Marywood and that was $30,000 25 years ago, I just thought that that was my birthright. No, it's not. My parents were much smarter than that. They saw that I was not willing to dedicate myself to that in high school. And it wasn't a big leap to figure, Glenn, that I wasn't going to dedicate myself in the early period of college. It took a long time. And actually, it took until my dad said, your 4 years are up. I agreed to pay for it. I'm not paying anymore. It actually takes that kind of stuff for you to figure out frantically, oh shit, what do I want to do? Now I've got student loans. Now I'm paying it back. Uh, that's a big deal. And when kids get too spoiled with that stuff, I don't think it's good for America at all. They come out of these liberal arts colleges knowing nothing. And who's going to fucking hire them? We don't need English lit. We don't need business management per se at a 4-year degree. I could hire them out at a associates and probably get a better worker. All this kind of stuff. Never mind communications and all the other shit. Even my own poli sci. Not worth it. Not worth it. I think we're changing as a country. We're shedding the scales, not the virus, but the scales. I think we're gonna be better off. I honestly hope that Trump gets the opportunity to lead us through the transition for the next 4 years. But I think regardless of what happens in November, this country has been affected and will change.
By the way, we got 3 more donations in the last 30 minutes, I'd say, the last 20 minutes. And here they are. I don't really know their names, but I don't want to give away too much. I'm just going to say AAA. You know who you are. Your PayPal ID has AAA in it. Thank you very much for your generous donation. It is appreciated. I also want to thank Doug. Thank you, Doug, very much. And James. James really went well beyond what I would consider sanity in his donation, but I appreciate it. And we do it for you, my friends. We do it for you. We
do. Literally, we do. It's it takes me back to that meeting that we had at the bank a couple of months ago, just deciding if we wanted to really even undertake this whole venture, which we couldn't have foreseen what's happening now. But I feel a lot better about our decision. It was either that or wrap it up,
Yeah, and my vote was to wrap it up, but we didn't.
Yeah.
At the last minute, I was like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we should try it. And I'm thinking tonight and the last couple of weeks have proven me wrong in where I thought this thing was going.
Well, you've been a negative Nelly since you were probably a toddler.
Yeah, but
so
man,
none of us.
It's not even that. It's that I watched what happened in late 2017, 2018, and I didn't think there was a way back. I was wrong. There was a way back, and I think that there is a taste for straight talk, non-insane gaslighting where, we're going to be telling you, that the Chinese are spreading this thing in suitcases and all the whole horse shit that you see online. There's just so much insanity on Twitter. I even, just for you and for the audience, I actually listened to the first 10 minutes of Bill Mitchell's show yesterday.
Oh, Jesus. He still got the show.
Yeah, he had some Indian doctor on who's running for Congress, I guess.
It's VA Shiva. Shiva's trying to make...
Guess what? He wouldn't let him get a word in, edgewise. And I remember thinking, this is unwatchable. And I think the audience will understand that I just can't do all 40 minutes of this. I can't. It's terrible. I have no problem watching this doctor who's running for Congress if he's actually allowed to express what he thinks. But I don't want to listen to Bill Mitchell giving these 5-minute wind-up questions, basically doing to him what he did to you for 2 years.
Yeah, right? Shiva knows what he's talking about. He's a little out there, but he knows what he's talking about.
He wouldn't let him say shit, and I thought, wow, that kind of reminded. So Adam Gingrich, Donald Trump is like the best, and when you think about being the best, sometimes being the best means you're always the best, and being. I
don't want to have any nightmares related to it. Bill generously asked a $20 question here. I see a day where telemedicine extending to manufacturing craftsmen sit at home performing their art.
Exactly.
But needing to be physically there, bringing the best in America to build USA. I think so. I think
we could be doing more.
I don't know where unionism comes in on that whole thing.
By the way,
but that's a great
Bill.
point.
The only time I would ever show my private parts over a Zoom call would be in the future if the doctor needs to see something. That's unlike Bill Mitchell. I draw the line on a medical professional. And also, by the way, they are making devices that are USB-C compatible devices where you can have your I guess the iPhone has it now too, and some of these other phones, your vitals can be
Mm,
taken by the doctor with a secure device. So there's a lot of
yeah,
things that probably still you need to go to someone local to get various tests, like blood tests, blood drawn or whatever. But
yeah.
listen, I think as a country, being where we are, we could be doing so much more than we're doing. And I'm hoping that this is a wake up call to all these good time Charlies who's been getting away. These are not just politicians, but physicians, police, anyone who's in a managerial position in our society. This should be a wake up call. We can do better, and we should for the next generation,
And
you know?
and do you think that we got plenty of wake up calls there? We got the so-called face-to-face technology, which is getting exploited, both mainly externally, but internally as well. I think eventually corralling China and holding them with a punitive stance or doing something to them. Until we do that, we'll be lucky to hold on to anything. I mean, do you see what the latest headlines that they were willing to give France? I don't know if this is true. This is what I read, that they're willing to give France 8 billion uh, N95 mask as long as they were willing to accept the 5G
Yeah. Thank God
system. I mean,
there's no transparently criminal activity taking place by the Chinese in these
that's
times, right?
funny. That is goddamn
Because
extortion.
if there were, I think that China might be even more trouble. But thank
Uh,
God
you know,
they're not doing these things because that's just
you know what I see? I'm going to predict this right now. I see a couple of near visits, I will call them, of our military personnel and theirs in the South China Sea. I just think that they think that this is a good time to push the limits with us, and I think that was the reason why Captain Crozier was treated the way he was. And I think we need to push back even harder. And
you remember
you
when
can never let your enemies think you're weak.
W was in his first like couple of months, the horse shit the Chinese pulled with that plane. You remember they forced some plane down. It was like they were a passenger jet that they said was like they always say is a spy plane, and whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so it just look, these things have been going on for decades, and no one has really done anything about it. And this is a golden opportunity to push the reset button on a plethora of horseshit that's been
I think
tolerated.
so too.
You know.
I think so too. I mean, I think it's just time to take off the. It's almost like a dermatologist, right? Like it's time to take off the ugly stuff. We don't know if it's cancerous or not. We'll send it to a lab. We'll just say, that doesn't look right. Let me take that off.
Right.
I think that's exactly where we are with the economy, with the military relationships throughout the geopolitical world. I think we got them on the ropes. I think everywhere, everybody's on the ropes. There's nobody in a better position than us, even though we're suffering through the worst of it now. We're going to come out of it, and so I think that we're good. But don't ever forget what I told you after that bill was passed. How much money, if you don't believe me, go back and read the CARES Act. How much money is buried in there for the United States military to bulk up their operations internationally? Huge, huge, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yep.
On top of the hundreds of billions we already spend, we are doing things that no nation can keep up with. And now you look at a downturn China, they can just lie all they want. They can try to bring back workers that are susceptible to virus and dying or whatever. Eventually, it's gonna play itself out. So they may look like they have a distinct advantage now, but some of these workers are going to expose other workers, and it's going to go second wave
Yeah.
in China. And this time, we're not going to open up flights again at all, so they won't have a chance, and Italy won't either. And the people they'll die there. And God bless them. Chinese people don't deserve to be treated like anything less than they are, which is human beings. But it's unfortunate that their government treats them that way.
Well, listen, the Chinese at some point need to rid themselves. They need to rid themselves of this pernicious, parasitical government, which is
Mhm.
the bat feces remainder of the Mao Zedong period, right? Um, this thing, I mean, we can say whatever you want about Putin and Russia, but the average Russian is way better off today than they ever were during that Soviet nightmare that they had to survive. And for the Chinese, if you have a certain kind of job and you live in a certain city, it's not that bad. It's actually okay. Your lifestyle can be okay, but the majority of those Chinese live in a horrible situation. There's not
Yeah.
proper food, not proper medicine, not proper education. The government does not care. And egads, there's not enough women to have sex and have kids with. There, that whole society is messed up. And I think the first step to creating a better world for the younger generation is to finally have the balls to remove all of these criminal pseudo governments. And if, we can't continue the way we are with a UN that's 90%
Mhm.
non-democratic representation getting to
Yeah.
vote on things. I don't give a shit what these parasitic fake police state governments have to say. I don't care if it's in the World
Neither does
Health.
Trump.
Right, neither does Trump. I don't care about their bullshit. And it takes something like this, I think, to really hit it home, you know?
Well, I don't. I say this humbly, and I say this with great trepidation, but I don't think Russia, one, or China, two, realistically think they can withstand another 4-year term of Donald Trump.
No.
So we should expect efforts beyond anything we've ever seen to undermine the reelection of this president as far as foreign interference is concerned.
Well, it's the kind of foreign interference that the Democrats won't be finding fault with.
No, they won't. Yeah, they'll act like it's not real at all.
Yeah, no, that's not foreign interference. No, no, no. That guy who had the briefcase for Bill Clinton and
Yeah.
the what was that guy's name? I can never remember his name, but it was some guy who basically got military technology in a briefcase, and then he went to jail, didn't he? One of these Clinton bundlers, these Democrat bundlers with some. This is the kind of crap that's been going on for 40 or 50 years. People playing footsie with actual treason. Like the Rosenbergs got exactly what they deserved. But since then,
Yeah, the libs are writing documentaries now saying we did wrong.
yeah, but those I saw the ultimate documentary, which would have been, I guess, the granddaughter of Ethis and
Yeah,
Julius Rosenberg. I actually
yeah.
met
Well,
her
she
once.
she brought she brought the fucking goods.
Well, she started to make the
Uh,
documentary to exonerate her grandparents.
yeah.
And during the making of the documentary, the Verona files were all of the KGB files from the Soviet era, not all of them, but
Mhm.
most of them were declassified. And this Verona project made these things available in like 18, or not in 18, but like 10 different languages for people who
Mhm.
are interested. And she was the first online. And unfortunately for her, and listen, all credit to her, because a normal liar would have stopped the documentary, shit canned it, and pretended it never
Mhm.
happened. She didn't. The whole last 15 minutes of the documentary is about how she was wrong, that her grandparents were in fact traitors to this country,
Yeah.
and it was an amazing. If you ever get a chance, I don't remember the name of this doc. I watched it once or twice. It blew. It takes a lot since I turned 30 to really surprise me or shock me. But I literally, at the end of this, watching the liberal bullshit for the first 40 or 50 minutes, going, yeah, they're
Mhm.
not. And then at the end, I was like, holy shit. And I was thinking, here's a documentary that's never going to win anything, because none of the libs who judge these things are going to want anyone to see it. And I think
Yeah.
I may have been me and the documentary maker herself were the only two people who saw it. I jest, but probably not that far away from the truth. We just got another donation, Adam.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Oh, it's Rooftop. Rooftop
Sir James.
just sent us a donation. I don't think he's on the roof anymore, right? We should probably call him
Oh,
Bunker.
well, right now, yeah, because I don't think anybody bothers him.
Bunker
I
Man
think he's
Jimmy,
outside.
right? He's bunkered down. He's hunkered
No,
down.
he's up there. He's getting fresh air. I don't think anybody bothers him up there.
Yeah. I've got to get a copy of that documentary. That's going to be my mission in the next couple of weeks to get a copy. It was that
Did
funny.
you see my tweet with the throwback photo of you, me, and Rooftop?
Let's see it. Let's see.
That was, I think, 2 days ago.
Yeah, I
I
saw
did. I
that.
put
Oh,
that up.
Rooftop.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Rooftop Jimmy only Periscope? That bizarre LSD. Yeah, it was like
Yeah, it was
acid
like
rock.
really
It was like a
psychedelic.
60s
Yeah,
acid rock happening.
yeah.
That was
It was
something.
awesome, and we thought this was like he was tipping the the
Yeah,
deal,
that's
like
right.
letting us know, and then he went like, "Oh yeah, no more for you."
Right.
I was
And
like,
that's it.
"Wow." Yeah, I
He
was
did.
like,
He probably fucked around with OBS for a week, did his little thing,
yeah.
and then disappeared. He was a
He
one.
did. He does the best Irish goodbye in the world. This guy invented
Yeah,
the
you remember
Irish
in New
goodbye.
York, he was there hanging out, and then boom, gone.
Dude, the same way fucking years ago, man. In down in
Atlanta.
Alpharetta, Georgia,
Yeah, in
man.
Georgia.
I talked to him like 3 or 4 times on the phone. We're getting all psyched up to meet him, and like we got like 5 minutes together, and then boom, he was gone. I was like, Jesus, what happened to him? He was
When he was staying
also
here,
he was in Texas as
when
well.
he stayed here at the farm, I had to stop him from fleeing. He was trying to leave in the middle of the night. I made him. No, I'm just kidding. But
Shit, how the hell would I got home on that one? He drove me there that time.
that was a weird trip because I ended up driving everyone to.
Yeah, we went to New York. That was a total Grateful Dead experience. What a weird, strange trip it's been. So, I'm going to go. We are going to sign off. I want to wish everybody for those that are practicing of the faith, a happy Palm Sunday. I don't even know how you get palms. I really don't. Probably going to have to go back and grab one if you had one from last year. It's pretty customary to hold on to a palm that you got from mass every year, and kids like to do that as well. So I don't know how that's going to work for everybody, but High Turbine's got a link there. If you're interested, save that. It's and don't forget that this is a weird time for everything to be coming together. So even if you're a Book of Revelation person, don't take your eye off the pages for too long, because we got a bunch of stuff going on and it is Easter. But more or less, I'm hopeful. I'm proud, a little bit dismayed at our own Twitter people. I'm loath to call them ours, but they're in our community, and they really should stop with the nonsense for now. And let's get through this next week in New York. And there goes, what New York, that could be Philadelphia. I'm not blind to the fact that things could get out of control, but I'm feeling pretty good about this. This is a hot burning contained fire at this point, and it may spread upward, which means where our good friends Lisa and Obi are at, and we hope that doesn't do what it planned to do, but it looks like could. So they're taking ventilators from upstate New York and bringing them down to the city.
Makes sense.
But remember what Trump said today is the darkest part of this whole truth is once you start talking ventilators, it's it's a very low chance you're not talking fatalities at the back end of it. So let's get people their hydroxychloroquine, their Z-Pack. Let's because why not, right? I mean, Jesus, at this point.
I'm thinking, well, very soon, within the next month, all of those dirtbags in the media who were mocking the president for mentioning these drugs, and they're gonna have to eat crow, man, big time, because
Yeah.
you don't listen, guys. When people are dying, the usual bullshit, the fake impeachment train that they've been on, I think has crashed into a wall of reality. I don't think they realize yet exactly how
Yeah.
bad it is for them. The way they've played this has just been awful. Awful.
I think so too. I think Trump has been listening to a lot of people on the logistics side, the military, to just not give away all of our capabilities, to have ventilators that not everybody's going to know about, and we're going to see what happens. Let us hope we don't run into this whole, necessity where, oh my God, somebody died because they didn't have a ventilator. Let me tell you, if somebody
Did
died
you
because
see
they didn't have a
this?
ventilator,
Serious Cat says one reporter called it a magic potion today.
well, they probably work for One American News, so that's good.
He was like, what did Asimov? Asimov said it was Arthur C. Clarke that.
Oh, they were derisively
Yeah, magic.
referencing them.
Listen,
Yeah,
magic to a less developed civilization. Your cell phone would be the devil's magic. So just because this
listen,
micro-brained person doesn't understand, I mean,
yeah,
anyway, as I'm saying,
try,
my
we,
wife has been using this stuff for a couple months now, and
which might have been an inadvertent prophylactic, is what you're
what
saying,
I'm
and
saying is, I think she had it, but there's no way to get her tested the way the situation is now.
yeah, soon, antibody will be soon. You know, might have to travel a little bit, but
Well,
yeah,
listen,
and then she
it
could get
doesn't matter
plasma to
because it's
save
well, it's
others.
whatever that was is well gone weeks ago. So
No, I'm
yeah,
saying the antibody's there. She can get plasma and save other people.
yes,
That's what's going to turn the corner for
I'm not
us
sure
if
they would
this does.
take her because of the Lyme disease, but anyway,
No, probably not.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but they're taking more homosexual blood now than ever,
Well, look,
so I'm not really
you
sure they give a
listen. You
shit
opened up the
anymore.
can of worms. I'm saying if they're given the way that our policy on blood donation has gone in the last 20 or 30 years, hey, what the fuck? There's a lot worse things than Lyme disease if you have the COVID
Yeah,
19 than Lyme disease. Getting rid of COVID, but getting Lyme disease, that might be an equitable trade, in an alternate
I don't. Yeah,
reality. But yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Lyme, Connecticut, as President Trump is fond of saying.
Yeah.
It all comes from
It
somewhere.
does. And Lyme, Connecticut,
So
where this started, there is how shall we put it, a virology lab, an experimental type of virology lab. Of course, we don't want to go down the rabbit hole of conspiracies saying that this is some kind of thing that escaped. But I'm just saying, maybe people were eating bats in Connecticut, and that, or ticks or deer or something, or maybe
yeah,
it's something got out of the lab. It's been
maybe it did.
maybe it did.
The conspiracies will never die.
No, they won't.
So don't try to kill
My
them.
wife believes it, and she's got it. So whatever.
Yeah, so she earned the right to do it.
Yeah.
So tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, still on with the Colonel.
The Colonel, yes.
Okay, and then you and I,
Tuesday.
10 o'clock on Tuesday.
Unless something huge happens that requires.
Then it would be Monday. But I think it's probably going to be Tuesday, and Tuesday probably will be a sobering day of, resuscitation of deaths that we don't want to talk about, numbers, but we have to understand we got to get to the peak. It's going to happen. So as soon as we get to the peak and we get down that other side,
That's it.
then we can start talking about the things that people want to talk about, which is like,
Well, then we can have
testing
you,
antibodies, getting back
but
to
you
work.
can start assessing the political fallout from it once we.
Then we can start. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I'll be the reason why. Last point I'm going to make before I get off. The reason why Trump is there every day and taking all these questions to the point of exhaustion is he's not going to allow anything to fill in the gaps. He's not going to allow anyone to paint a picture that he's not posing for. He's definitely putting it in your face. He's watching everything anybody on the stage for his own administration is saying, and he's answering the questions that he feels he can answer, and he's ad-libbing a little bit onto what Fauci is saying or Birx is saying. And he really does believe, he's a gambler. He's always been a gambler. He believes that there are ways that we can curtail or cut down on this stuff. And when he needs a little bit of that true political touch, he knows when to tap the skills of Mike Pence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in your face to everybody.
Hopefully, the next president of the United States after Trump.
Yeah, I mean,
in
it's in the face to
2024.
everybody who's like, we need Nikki Haley and drop. I mean, give me a break. This guy has been charged with probably the hardest job of his life so far. I have no complaints. So
Yeah, he seems
I'm going to
pretty
get off
bulletproof.
here
So listen, Adam, we'll see you Tuesday.
Tuesday night, and I'll be on asking questions of the Colonel about the Crozier behavior, Captain Crozier behavior on that carrier tomorrow night.
You know
at
he's
8
going to
o'clock.
have
Hope to
some
see you all
good
then.
some good insight on that.
Well, I hope he does. I'm going to wait till he has the second glass of bourbon to ask him because I want to know what he really thinks.
Well, that won't take
I don't
long.
want any of that.
You only have to wait about 20 minutes, so
8:15 will be good.
8:15 you'll be good to go.
And again, I want to thank everybody who poured water on the dying plant that we are, and we'll see you on Tuesday night.
Very good.
Thank
See you
Glenn.
later, Adam.
Yeah.
There goes Adam. Man, I gotta say, even though this is our virgin tour with this new computer, I don't know, guys. I think this computer kicks ass. I'm looking at the resolution on Periscope, and Periscope has the shittiest resolution of all the different live streams, but it looks amazing. It looks great. It was worth it. It was worth finally doing this. So thank you, DeFango, for pushing me to do it. And thank you, everyone, for watching on a Saturday night, the MAGA Coalition. I think we are rapidly becoming the last place online where you won't get absolute crazy, wild-eyed speculation on everything. And that's not saying how great we are. It's really saying how insane everyone else seems to be going during this trying time. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Colonel Jim Pillow, a retired United States Marine Corps colonel who did work in Washington, D.C., interfacing with the Pentagon and other types of high-level military types of things. And I'm sure he'll have a lot to say on the recent brouhaha, coronavirus and some people in the military. I can already kind of figure out what he's going to say, but you never know. So we'll see you at 8 p.m., everyone. Thanks for being here. I will see you later.